Broadcasting live from sunny South Florida, this is KMA Talk Radio. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of fine cigars. Your KMA crew, the Italian Scallion, Paul DeGracco, Alex Tavella, a.k.a. The Goat, and always telling it like it is, Honest Abe.
I like to smoke them like the Winston Churchill, like John Kennedy, yeah. Remember Coach Red Auerbach, pumped up for victory, yeah. Well, you can take my wife, you can take my car, but you can't take my big cigar. My cigar.
Good morning. Honest Abe here, broadcasting live from sunny South Florida. This is KMA Talk Radio, episode number 433. I'm here with my gang, the Italian Scallion himself, Paul DeGracco, and the man they call the GOAT, Alex Tavella.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, genitalia. How are we doing today?
We're here. We're rolling.
Exactly. I'm beat up.
Are you? You were beat up yesterday.
I was tired.
You were beat up yesterday.
When I talked to you, you were running around like a chicken with no head on.
Well, when I don't sleep, because I didn't sleep, what was it, Thursday night? Yeah, Thursday night I was like here in the office like 2:30, and then by the time I got home, got into bed up at 6:30 with the kids. I slept like 3 hours, but I get a high. I come in high. I mean, you can ask Alex. I'm singing, I'm dancing, and then that high like breaks.
It's all downhill from there.
Yeah,
I have the
4
same
or 5 o'clock, it's over. It's done.
Yeah.
Paul, are
Yeah,
you
we didn't sleep
reporting
much last
live
night
from the slums of Wellington?
I said to Alex before, I don't know, Wellington's a really nice place where we live, and I don't know, I managed to find like the worst possible block in Wellington. Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. Listen, maybe it'll be good for my kids to get a taste of.
I want to go to see where the worst possible block in Wellington is.
Abe, if you came here, you'd make fun of it. You would make fun of me for being here. The house itself, the setup is nice, but there's, you know what it is? People are going to yell at me for this.
Yeah, they are.
There's no HOA here, which listen, there's no HOA, so nobody cuts their grass, and they're like those townhouses where there's like 4 or 5 around.
What a travesty!
You got to be careful with that uncut grass. You never know who will jump out at you.
They don't pick up after their dogs.
And you let your kids go outside? Oh my God!
We have a patio area that they're allowed to play in. They can't go outside.
Where did we find this guy?
Aristocrat.
No, I'm not. It's fine.
No, I'm not. The grass.
Nice.
I'm in the worst part of Wellington I've ever seen. There's no grass cut here. There's
Thurston,
dog poop outside.
It's Thurston Howell.
Lovey.
You
know what? In all honesty, my wife and I would live anywhere. It doesn't matter. We've lived in whatever you would call a sketchy neighborhoods before. Never bothered us. People are people. But with the kids, I just worry. Like, people don't put their dogs on leashes over here. So like, I worry about stupid things like that. Even though I guess there is a leash law in Palm Beach County, but not in this area.
Is that a
here.
thing?
Yeah, totally a thing.
Yeah, and HOAs usually enforce it more. But I hate HOAs. Don't get me wrong. I hate that I can't do whatever I want to my house. But, I also don't want my neighbor having 6 pickup trucks on cinder blocks on their front lawn.
On the front lawn, yeah.
Which you see around here. Like, that's the thing. And it's not a bad neighborhood.
What's wrong with a pickup truck on a cinder block?
I don't like it in front of their house on the grass.
Aesthetically, it's not the most appealing to Paul.
It's fine if it. Listen, I'll be honest. I grew up on Long Island, so everybody does that. It's fine if it's on the driveway. It's just weird when it's on the grass.
If it was a 30-foot boat on cinder blocks, that'd be okay.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that either. I don't want anything on cinder blocks on your front lawn. It looks bad.
I'm gonna go have a pallet of cinder blocks delivered to his new house.
Actually, I could probably use them right now. Build a wall around my house.
What I want to know is, were you guys crying in that picture?
What does it matter? Why do
you've lived there for like 3 years? You got it's not like you've been there for like a half a century.
Almost
you put a lifetime in a house.
I'll tell you.
I've never seen anybody crying moving. Ever.
Let me say this.
Unless you're crying from the move, like
right.
the process of moving. That's yeah.
So I've never seen anybody crying.
The day before the movers had been here, or 2 days before the movers had been there, and they got all the stuff that we were putting into storage. It was a real long and stressful day. And then that day when we took that picture, which was, I guess, 2 days ago, that day we had decided to just rent like a U-Haul van and get the rest of the stuff over to this apartment. It's like 5 miles away from our house. So we were like, we're not going to pay the movers to move this stuff. So we did that, but it took a lot longer and there was a lot more stuff than we expected. Had to clean up around in the house. Every time we cleaned something up, the kids spilt something or, there was a mess somewhere. So it was just a very stressful day. And then what I said, let's take a picture. And first, Steffi said, I want to go in and just look around, make sure everything's there, say goodbye to the house, whatever. She went in, she came out bawling. And then I went in, you know what it was? It was more about like this. These are our first two children, and this was their home. So it's weird to be leaving it and not going into the new house yet because construction's delayed. So I think it was like that kind of feeling like my babies don't have a home.
Most people will just characterize that moment as just being life. And
you can be emotional.
Wait, just to recap, babe. The short answer to your question was yes.
I know
it was correct. Yes.
Did you are you like the type of person that like stopped and looked at like one of the moldings like on the wall and said, "Oh, that's where Nala like gnawed the wood. I'm gonna miss that molding there in the corner where she gnawed it for like 30 minutes."
I should have fixed that.
Oh my God.
I did say goodbye to the house.
How does one say goodbye to the house?
Did you hug it? Did you walk up to the corner
how does that process
and hug the house? Don't lie, Paul. Don't lie. Did you hug the house?
I didn't hug anything. I walked inside alone and I looked around and then I walked inside. So you've been in my house, that big open space. I said,
Paul's
thank you for keeping us safe.
Movie moments alone by himself.
Yes,
always. I'm always acting.
So where was your final goodbye? Where was the final goodbye? Like at what?
My house is a big open. My old house was a big open concept. So the main room was like the dining room, living room, kitchen were all one big room. So I stood in the middle by the living room and I just looked around. I said, "Thanks for keeping us safe, house." What's wrong with that?
I'm actually surprised the house didn't have a name.
No, I didn't. No, I do name my cars.
Hold on, don't lie. You said it out loud, right?
You definitely said it out loud.
Of course I said it out
loud.
Oh
my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. The best comment. Wait, what did Evan Darnell write earlier? I caught it. Oh, what's softer, organic virgin cotton or Paul? I mean, look, I can understand if you've been in a house 50 years, you raised kids, you grandkids do it, man. That house was a pit stop, bro. That wasn't even a house. Get out of here.
It was our first house. I never owned a house before. Neither did she. It was our first house together. It was a symbol of the start of our family.
Oh my God.
I can't be the only one that thinks that who is it, anyone that's out there that's commenting and watching right now, please stand up for me. You don't think it's emotional to fucking say goodbye to a house that your babies were born in?
Wait, did you see Evan Darnell's comment?
What, then the house said fuck off? Yeah. I posted it. Thanks, Wes. I'm there for you, buddy.
Oh my God.
All right. But my friend Diana is with me.
Of course she is.
I needed that this morning. Holy shit.
Well, great. I'm glad my emotions could listen. I'm not like a crier or anything, but I was a little teary-eyed.
Dude, there's no crying. My kids asked me, "Daddy, will you ever see you cry?" I said, "Only if I'm laughing too hard." That's about it.
My kids were not with me. They did not see me cry.
Oh my God, Jesus!
They were not with me. They were outside playing on the grass.
So I don't know. So what? You
ahead.
want to say something else? I don't know if I can laugh anymore this morning.
No, I'm done. The sooner we're done with the show, the sooner I can get to Disney World.
Are you really going to Disney World?
Of course he is. So, I mean, I swear to God, for a guy who does nothing, and when I say nothing but bitch and whine and complain how he's got no time in life and all this shit going, you're fucking Disney World like every fucking other week.
I haven't been to Disney World in like 5 months, dude.
What?
There's no way. There's no way.
Wait, hold on. Wait. No How long were you out of the state? That doesn't count.
Oh, yeah.
That was 3 months.
Yeah, okay. Those 3 months don't count. Get the fuck out of here.
June, July, May. I haven't been to Disney World since April.
I'm not.
All right. Well, but then take away 3 months that you weren't around.
2 months.
I don't know. I'm not buying. I feel like he was just there not that long ago.
Mouse House detox, Charlie.
Great. A comment from our guest on the sideline, if you hadn't noticed, made a good point. Who goes to Disney on a holiday weekend?
Yeah, it's
Paul.
the worst.
Paul
It
Petrarca.
wasn't my
Paul
choice.
goes to Disney on a holiday weekend.
Wasn't my choice.
So I hope our listeners and our fans out there caught some of our 10th anniversary episode last week. It was actually a very cool trip.
It was fun.
It was fun, and a big thanks to the Newman family and everybody at JC Newman. Man, those guys were on point. It was a little work putting up together and setting up, but what a great experience it was to see the new place. I had not seen it finalized, so that was my first time as well, seeing everything done. And they were popping tours.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were popping tours when we showed up Friday. There were people coming in there. And we had a really nice show. It was a good time. And in fact, I really enjoyed the dinner we had with Bobby Newman.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Bobby took us out to dinner. And it's really weird because, I was the young guy in the room always listening to stories. And now I'm watching Alex and Paul listen to stories of me and Bobby.
The two old guys talking.
Yeah, I've become the old guy now telling stories in a room.
3 old guys. Alan, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Alan
We had a
Goldfarb
good
was
time
there,
with our friend Alan Goldfarb.
Yep. Yep.
It was a
sent
fun
me
road
nice-
trip.
He
Well,
sent
it
me a
was.
nice text after the trip, actually. I mean, I've met Alan a handful of times, talked to him several times, but he was actually really nice. He sent me a nice text saying he enjoyed the trip.
Yeah, Alan's been my friend and rep for JC Newman and Fuente now for 25 years. So,
Awesome guy, man. He's got great stories too, though. He lived a life, man.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he is. So yeah, he wanted to tag along for the ride, and we're like, absolutely. So it's kind of fun. And you guys don't know the nightmare what happened after you. Well, Alex kind of did, but he thought he left his keys in Tampa to his car.
Oh no.
Yeah. So after we drove back, and I drove him to his car in our guest parking lot, we were out there for like 20 minutes. And
I didn't know that.
I
bolted. I was gone. I bolted.
We just gave up. Yeah. Alex gets out of the car. Yeah. I do Irish goodbyes. See ya. I'm out of here. See ya. So, but then you copped out and you went in and gave him a handshake and a shoulder bump. I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Alan. Alan's a great guy.
But yeah, he was looking for his keys. He thought he would have to call his wife to come up and get them and whatnot. I'm like, dude, just come to the house, hang out, give her a call. And then he finally found it. Like I never put it in there, but he found it. And
They were in his bag?
They were in his bag, which he emptied out like 3 times.
Oh, thank
But
God.
I guess it was in like a little zip area that he said, I would never put my keys in there. I don't know why.
Maybe they fell out at one point and somebody else did it.
Either way, he found it.
They all, man, he's like a celebrity in that place. Everywhere you walk, every single person is like, hola, Alan, or hello, Alan, or Alan.
And just so you know, Alan never goes there.
That's what he said, yeah.
That's what he said.
He just deals with these people over the phone or on the computers and whatnot, because he doesn't really go there unless they have an annual meeting or something. So he's seldom there. But he's been Alan. I gotta say, if you look at the whole organization, top to bottom, he's got to be in the top 5 of people who've been there the longest.
I gotta imagine that.
And are still alive. So yeah, he's been there for a long time. So and then we actually believe it or not, we had to throw out like about, I would venture to say, about 40% of that cake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I spoke to Austin and he sent me a picture. He goes, hey, by the way, thanks for the rest of the cake.
Even after like 2 days, we couldn't give it all away. 2 or 3 days, we couldn't give it all away.
I'll tell you what, Axel ate it. He liked it, but Eli fell in love with that cake. He probably had 4 pieces.
It was a great cake. It was a great cake.
Yeah. Props to the folks at JC Newman who directed Marissa into finding a place to make us that cake. But first off, that cake was heavy.
Yeah, I mean the problem, it was not only like this long, it was this damn high.
Yeah, it was a
lot of cake,
heavy cake, and it never even got cut during the show.
No, it didn't.
No, because like right after the show, they did like a tour, so everybody went to go on their little JC Newman tour, and the cake was there, and
put some cake in 5 packs.
We never ended up cutting the cake. The first cut is when I dropped Paul off, and he cut a huge chunk to take in the house for his family. Alex didn't want to take any. And then my kids had some, and I bought the rest to work, and we left it here for a day or two, and eventually had to throw it out.
I can't believe.
Yeah, I think everybody was just excited to go do the tours at the JC Newman factory. Kind of, we forgot about the cake. And
Eric was doing tours too. So some of those people that were there got to do a tour with Eric Newman.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell.
No, it was a great thing, and thanks to any of our fans who actually made the trek and come out there or came and hung out with us that day. It was a nice day. It was a really good day. And I want to go back there and do a show regardless of an anniversary. I think it was a great, cool room to do a show in.
It was.
Yeah, it was, and I'm glad we got to stay at that Hotel Hyatt because
that was a great hotel.
To stay there last time I was there, and we didn't get a room there. So next time we go to Ybor City, we're gonna stay there. That place is awesome.
I don't know if you noticed this, but did you notice what they had on the door for the "Do Not Disturb" sign?
Oh yeah, we put it on just because.
Bro, you know, like half the people are taking that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to take it.
I
almost took
Paul,
it.
no, we
Listen
noticed.
to me. I wanted to take it too, but I wouldn't do that to them. But you got to believe that they almost made that with the intention for
As a
people to take.
souvenir.
People to take.
You have to. There's no way because they had this nice little square metal medallion.
Yeah.
They had. I mean, the whole thing was maybe 2 inches by 2 inches
On like
It
a
was small.
leather strap.
It was a. No, it was a rope. It was a rope.
Oh, it was a rope.
It was a nice black rope that it maybe only hung that much off the doorknob, and on the metal medallion was their logo on one side, and the other side said "Do Not Disturb." And I'm like, what is this? Cannot be their "Do Not Disturb" sign. And it was. And I tell you, man, half of those got to get taken. Half of those.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point. That's probably their intent.
It's probably their intent. Take a look. They take it home. They remember where they stayed.
If I was paying for the room, then I would have taken it and suffered the consequences. But I didn't
Suffer
want to
the
be
$85 fee for the "Do Not Disturb."
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy
medallion you took.
that gave somebody else.
You take the robes home too, Paul?
No, well, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I never did take a robe home until I was with my wife, but we may or may not have breakers robes here. But no, we usually don't. There were no robes there. And that was the first thing Alex said. He was actually upset.
Oh,
He
yeah.
goes, "Oh, whoa. What kind of hotel is this? There's no robes?
Should I show the robe, Alex?
Yeah.
You have a different robe, a new robe? Oh, no. Is it a
hang on.
smoke-in robe?
Yeah.
Oh, he's turning off his camera. Hold on. I'll wait for him to come back. Oh, see, now this is the problem. Every time he has a cool idea, I got to spend money. Now I'm going to have to buy one of these.
That's a nice room. I like it.
Are they for purchase, or do you have to?
Nah, they'll be for purchase. They'll be for purchase. Because it's tough. You can't just give away, like, I can't send a large to a guy that's 400 pounds. You don't know what to send people.
Well, you ask them, but that's a lot of work.
But then that takes away the giveaway, the surprise. That's, the
that's
coins
true.
are fun because they just show up in the mailbox.
That's true. Oh, man. Well, what about you? What's been going on in your life while we're waiting for Abe to get a robe?
Well, I'm a free man this weekend. Family's up in New Jersey.
They go and visit your family without you?
They go visit her family. She's up in
Okay.
Jersey. She'll go see my family on Sunday. She makes. I made a decision about 7-8 years ago that I was tired of going home because the only place I ever went on vacation was home.
Right.
And
You don't want to just go home.
because I go home and I wind up spending the same amount of money as if I went to Vegas or a trip or an island or something. And I'm like, I might as well go places I've never been. I spent
Right.
27 years in Philadelphia. I keep going back home every time I go somewhere.
Oh, the Jedi Master is back.
I feel like Darth Sith.
Yeah. Wow. Wait, let me see the logo on the side there, and let me put you full screen. Whoa. I
Now-
like that. I'm into that.
After working on this for like almost a year now, like 9 months, this still is not right placement. This has got to be like over here
A
somewhere.
little bit lower, right? Yeah.
Yeah, over here. But we're gonna have these done hopefully by the time Tom and Michelle come down from Alaska.
Dude,
Yeah, hopefully.
that is awesome.
Yes, and these are the official smoking socialite robes. Da, da, da.
Wow.
Just so people understand how long we've been working on these robes.
I thought you forgot about it.
The
We
first
talked about
never.
it a year
The
ago.
first prototype was my outro to the Great Smoke. That was the first
Wow.
prototype. And now
Yeah.
here we are in September, just getting it where we want
Yeah, I feel like Steve Saka.
it.
This is not the right thing. This is
I
not
mean, look where the
perfect.
fuck they put. I mean, I don't know how many times they can't get this. I mean, who the hell puts it there? Gotta
It's
be
probably
over here.
easier for the embroidery machine. That's probably as far as it can go. They probably
No, it's a bit.
That's just.
They got to move it over.
But once they get it done, man, this is gonna be sharp, hot.
Yeah, that's great.
And by the way, this is softer than Paul.
Thank God.
This is actually a really nice soft open. I like the little hoodie thing. This wasn't in the original prototype, but I like.
No,
the
it
hoodie.
wasn't.
No.
I like a hood on a robe.
Yeah.
You're making kid sizes or what?
I feel like unfortunately, see, that was the other hard part. We went through a couple of companies that just they don't make like robes like in sizes like shirts. So it's gonna come like in normal size and jumbo size, and that's it.
That's fine. That should be fine. I mean,
This is the jumbo.
Right? Would you fit in the normal one? Because that looks a little wide.
I barely fit in the jumbo one. No.
And that thing is jumbo though. If I put that on, you literally I can hide completely in it. You won't see me.
So I need a normal size.
Yeah.
No, actually, we're gonna get a special Kids Gap one for you.
That's why I was making a joke about it.
Yes. Need a giant emblem on the back. Yeah. You want to pay $120 for a robe?
Exactly.
$120 just for the emblem.
And embroidery ain't cheap, man. It's by the stitch.
Literally.
It's by the stitch. All right. It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot in here. No.
Well, so we have an old friend on the show today.
Who's that?
Mr. Robert Caldwell is with us.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
Did you just call him old? Man, that's cold.
I said an old friend of the show.
Oh.
So you want to bring him on?
Yeah, man. Let's get
Get him in.
All right.
I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell.
It's time to meet your maker.
Joining us from just about an hour or so away from our location here.
You should have said like some undisclosed.
Yeah, like Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah, America or something.
Live from Esteli, Nicaragua, is Robert Caldwell. Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Do you guys remember my first show that I thought it was on a Sunday and it was on a Saturday and then I didn't show up?
Yep.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I think I do remember that.
And that was fucked because that was like when I was staying out till 6 a.m. every day. And I literally had like prepared 3 weeks or a month in advance. Like I've changed my routine and my sleep schedule. And I'm like, I'm going to wake up and do this show. Then I go out Friday night till like 5, 6 a.m. And then I wake up to take a piss and it's like 10 o'clock. And I have like a million angry messages from Christian Aroa, who was my then partner. Like, where the fuck are you? You didn't go to the show. And I'm like, fuck, because I thought it was Sunday, but I'd mentally prepared for a very long time for that. So it was like, it was tragic. And I didn't get back all that prep time because like I spent time like massaging my schedule to wake up not at noon.
That's first world problems.
Yeah, I was going to say that's living the life.
I don't know if you know this, but like we actually had to restructure how we set up for KMA after you came on the show.
In what sense?
Because of you, we actually had to go buy that foam padding that we would lay over the granite. Because your wrist, all the wrist things that you wore, and throughout the show, you kept like, and it would clank on this granite table and resonate throughout the whole broadcast. And he wasn't doing it on purpose. Just every time his wrist would hit the table, man, it made this huge sound. So we actually had to go buy foam padding. And it was you and Matt
with his
Booth.
hands a lot.
Yeah, it was you and Matt Booth too. We had to get foam padding to lay over the granite table so that when people clank their wrist things, it didn't clank a lot.
What a pain in the ass that was putting out every week.
It wasn't even putting out. It was the taking down in the 3 minutes so the other show could get on.
Yeah. With them standing there staring at me while I'm rolling up big foam pads and pulling down the banners.
We had this show that would come on after us that didn't do. It was the car dealer, the rehabilitated car dealer. What's his name?
Not Ed Morse, the other guy.
No, the old guy. Earl Stewart.
Earl Stewart. Great guy, by the way.
Super great guy. Super great guy. So when they were doing their show, they were doing their show before we were doing our show. But like they just like would walk in, turn on the mics and start. But then they started seeing our show, backdrops, microphones, cameras, all this shit. Next thing we know, like 4 months later, he comes in with a producing team. They got a team of 3 guys, cameras, backdrops, billboards. So we literally had like 3 minutes, 5 minutes to tear everything down, get out so they could start their show.
Because they needed to do their setup. They were great though. They asked if they could sit and watch one of our shows, so we did that. I think didn't they talk to you on one of their shows, Abe, or was that the other show? One of the shows had you on.
Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Yeah. I can't remember. But he's a good guy. I'm going to tell you why he's a guy. Because one of our friends, not one of our friends actually, our web guy Brian bought a car and ended up being a real bad lemon. And Earl's whole shtick is he's the rehabilitated car salesman. So he'll talk about all the scams and the bullshit fees and everything when you go buy a car,
And,
whether you buy
and he knows him because he did them. He says it all the time. He's like,
Yeah.
that's just how you do the business.
Yep. And he kind of gives you insight on how not to get screwed buying a car. So Brian was telling me about his car he just bought. It was terrible. It was awful. I went in there and I asked Earl about it one time before his show or after his show. And he's like, where did you buy it from? He's like, give me that guy's number. And he like literally called that dealership and said, if you don't take this kid's car back, I'm going to so-and-so and call this bureau agency. And the guy took Brian's car back after not wanting to deal with Brian after selling him a car.
Good for him.
Yeah, he actually got on the phone and called the dealership. So I guess
he's the one that told me. He's the one that told me that when you go to the dealership, you have to look at the price, even though they give you a different price when you sit down with them. He said because next to MSRP, there might be a small D next to it. He said when there's that D there, that means it's a dealer set price. So they can make up any price they want. It doesn't mean the manufacturer suggested retail price. They put that D in there, MSRP D, and he said that means they made up a price. So the MSRP could be, 45,000, and on the sticker it says 49,000, and it makes you believe that it's the MSRP, but it's not. He said they jack up the price so that they have negotiating room. He said that, and technically it's legal, but it's not ethical.
Putting the D there makes it legal.
I guess so, yeah.
It is. Oh, there you go.
Isn't that crazy?
Little tidbits you learn on KMA Talk Radio.
Yeah.
So, Robert, where is this subtropic region you are broadcasting from?
That's my yard, man.
Nice.
I have a cool this is my side yard. I mentioned to you, but I bought like an old narco compound, and then I've been redoing it. So there's like tons of foliage everywhere, lots of hiding places.
In a good way, or you wanted it that way, or you're clearing it out?
No. Like I'm leaving. I'm just redoing the house. I mean, I like nature, so it's like it was at one point it was land that was owned by like Fairchild Tropical Garden, which is like the botanical garden in Miami where they grew plants that fed into that. And then like a narco pilot bought it and then built like a cool house on it. And then it just kind of went into disrepair. So I bought it a few years ago. It was kind of like a teardown. And then I've been slowly redoing it. And then I don't know if you can hear they're working today. I'm like in the last, I just did like hurricane impact glass and doors. We're doing the paint. So it's like the final stretch of nightmare. But it's very cool. I found like a bunch of hidden safes. Like there's hidden safes in the room and in the floors. Like when we ripped out the floors, there were like safes. There's a panic room that's built into the one of the rooms, like underground. And then there was a panic room outside with a submarine hatch, like in the back corner of the yard. And apparently there's like a 12 by 12 by 12 like concrete room under there. Wow. So really wild. It's very cool.
I'm going to say it's safe to assume your neighbors can't see you from the yard, can they?
Nobody can see anything. And then actually, so we built a wall. We're very private people and we generally like hate humanity. And so I went to redo my driveway because the driveway was like asphalt and I wanted to do poor concrete paver. So I went down the street and I rang one of my neighbors because it's a block that's like 10 homes like around the block, but the whole thing's very forested because it was all this like thing where they grew these trees and plants and shit. And then so I went down to my neighbor and I rang the like bell, or whatever by the driveway, and I left like a little message like, hey, I'm your neighbor, because nobody really knows anybody here, I guess. I mean, you kind of like casually see people every so often. So I said, I'd like a referral on the driveway company you use because they did a great job. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from this woman and she's like, hey, we never check our, like, I guess when you press that button, you can leave that message and people just drive by and they're like selling, like I want to cut your grass or like, do you need trash pickup or whatever? So I guess like the amount of like spam rings is insane, or like, hey, it's Amazon, there's a package. So then we didn't put a buzzer or anything. So like, if you don't have my phone number, I don't know you're here, which is great because then nobody ever bothers us, which is nice.
I guess we can't come and visit then.
No. No, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard locked.
Yeah, you just need a machete to get to his house.
Exactly.
That's great, man. You don't find a lot of that in South Florida. You have to
No,
go,
and actually, particularly this neighborhood, man, like they cleared everything. So everything's like, I mean, it's crazy because like as tropical as it is down here, you know, it's like let's saw everything down,
Yep.
put down grass and like 2 palms by the pool.
Yep.
So
and let's build an HOA community in one
there you
line.
go, Abe.
That's the last of it, Robert.
I got more coming your way.
That's the
I'm
last
working
of
on.
it.
I've been working on a brand actually. I think I mentioned to you, but I'm gonna be like in the next 18 months. I'll have a little licorice brand. So I'm very.
Are we going to
excited
talk about this now?
What, licorice?
Yeah,
I was just showing him this is the last of it.
because
I got more
Robert
coming
and
your
I
way.
bonded last time too. But I wanted to ask you a question because if you don't know, Robert is kind of obsessed with licorice from around the world.
Robert
And
is a black
is Abe and I.
licorice connoisseur.
Yeah. So I thought I was into it, but Robert's like taking it to a whole different level. But I had friends that recently moved back to Finland, Robert. Do you have any Finnish licorice?
Of course,
Yeah, they do some weird shit. I
they
have
do
a
salt.
bag of it.
They do salt, double salt, and then they have a salted spiced one, and then they have
Yes.
a spiced pepper one.
I have
I
all
finished
three
it.
of them.
You had a salted one, Abe. You definitely had a.
Most of the stuff he sent me is salted. He only sent me one sweet one. Most of the stuff he sent me salted, but not spice salted. That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
I
there's
have
actually-
some here, Abe. I'll get it to you.
There's some really cool. There's one I think it's out of Denmark, but excuse me, Finland. I forget the maker, but it's called Super Salt, and it's it's really intense. It's so salty, like your mouth foams.
Yeah,
And equally as
I
spicy
have
and-
some like that here. I'll save some for you the next time we see you, Robert. It is different. Nobody else in the house likes it except for me. But
Yeah,
I actually enjoy it.
I think it's an acquired thing, maybe. I don't know.
Robert
Absolutely, it is.
first on KMA Talk Radio told us about how he enjoyed it because I like licorice, black licorice, and he told us how he enjoyed it with a cigar. First time I'd ever heard of it. And honestly, ever since then, if I have some, I always have someone have a cigar.
And you know what's funny? Lou Rothman told us that most major cigarette brands add licorice oil, all of them. They add licorice oil or essence to the.
Yeah, so licorice, the number one use for licorice globally is actually tobacco seasoning, like for enhancement, but with cigarette tobacco and pipe tobacco. And we don't use it in the cigar industry. And actually, I brought back like a bunch of pure licorice extract from Sweden to our factory to like use as a betun to see how it worked, and it didn't work. There's got to be a secret to it, but we were like playing with it just to see, okay, what would it do to a cigar, and like it didn't work. But in cigarette tobacco, like that's what they do with licorice. I mean, they season the shit out of it, and you can take a not so intense tobacco flavor and like amplify it, like the same thing like MSG does to food, like just flavor enhancer. It has the same effect on tobacco. And interestingly, when you smoke cigars, it has that effect. Like Abe, like you said, like it brings out notes and nuances, intensity. And funny enough, so I mean, I have a handful of manufacturers that always ask me for licorice, and then some of them, like, I mean, AJ, when I was working with AJ, I gave him licorice in Nicaragua, and he'd never had it like in his life, and ever, because it's not a thing that's in Central. I mean, it's not common at all, I guess, really. And then so a lot of Central Americans, South Americans, Caribbeans, they think it's anise because it's a similar type of thing. But anise to me is something that kind of like fucks up the flavor of a cigar. So he tried this. He tried it at his house, and he was smoking a cigar, and he's like, can you get me some? And I was like, yeah, I was on my way to Europe on a trip. I'm like, how much you want? And he's like, you know, like he just gestures. So I literally brought him a duffel bag, like a small carrying bag with like about $600 worth of like different stuff, and just gave it to him. And then like 3 weeks later, he's like, I need more. So
Robert Caldwell is the licorice pimp of the cigar industry.
Yeah, seriously. When we went to Italy, I bought the Leone tins.
Yeah.
With the, you know, and I probably bought. I mean, they came in cases like this that were vacuum sealed. I think I bought 6 of them and brought them back with us with luggage. They're gone now. I mean, that was 4 years ago, but they're hard to find those here.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do a brand, because like they're nowhere. So
Yeah.
the last one that was here commercially was Sen, which kind of like when I was a child, they were around. But Abe, your generation, they were, I mean, that was it. And that was an anise enhanced licorice. And that was the last brand to really exist. And then now you talk licorice and people are like, I like red licorice. And you're like, that's not licorice. Licorice
Not
is
licorice.
the fucking root of the plant. Like that licorice is, it's like saying I like bubblegum cigars. I mean, bubblegum, it's not a cigar. It's a candy. And then so the other stuff, it's like, you know, you had like black Twizzler that turned into red Twizzler. And then now they call that red licorice, which is ridiculous because licorice is black and it's a flavor on its own. But so that's kind of where the idea came from because I can't get any of this stuff. And then so I was like, oh, I'll reach out. And I looked into it in a promo type of way at first. But then I was like, I might as well just do something with it because why not? So I started pre-COVID. I went over to Italy, met with some manufacturers, started working on some stuff. And then COVID hit. And Italy got like wrecked. And one of my manufacturers
got rocked.
Yeah, they got like anal that first month or 2 months. And then one of the guys just stopped responding. And then I have another one that I was like, literally at PO stage, and then they ghosted, didn't respond for like a month. And this is a major company out of Sicily, and they just disappeared. And I had a huge PO, everything lined up, and then I'm like, hey, blah blah, and then 3 weeks later, I start getting these auto response like, hey, we're on vacation for the next 6 months because it's Europe, so we're out for all of August and half of September, or whatever. And then I sent him a fiery email this morning, like, you guys are assholes, and if not, I'm going with whoever. But Leone's an amazing brand, but Leone's expensive.
And it's hard to get here because you have to, you can get it from importers, but you have to buy it by like the gross. So and even then the shipping is very expensive.
Yeah.
Somebody put up Kevin Shahan's question for Robert.
Yeah.
So Kevin Shahan's saying, Robert, what's the thing in licorice that can make it deadly? There have been a few stories this year of people dying after consuming large quantities of licorice over a few days' time. That's
a question I don't have an answer to, but I believe it. I believe like licorice in huge quantities in a pure form does something. But I mean, I'm talking like you eat 3 pounds of pure licorice, it does something with your heart. It can affect your heart. But I mean, you have to consume it. Like I read an article about this a year and a half ago, and it was like an FDA warning, and it had to do with licorice consumption in pure form. And it was like for people that eat like up to 1 pound a day. But I mean,
that's
like,
ridiculous.
Abe, that little container, you'd have to eat like 25 of those every day. So it's really crazy because it's a very beneficial thing. It's beneficial to your stomach.
Listen, I don't care what it is. Any single item in that quantity is going to have an adverse effect.
Yeah, water can kill you.
Water can kill you. Exactly.
Yeah. So without doubt.
We're talking, and guys, just so you know, like we're talking like the ones that we eat are like little, they look like rat.
Yeah,
turds.
they're not Twizzlers.
Yeah. Those are actually big ones.
Yeah, and you eat like
it's the camera that makes it look a little big. They're not really.
You eat like 2 or 3 a day, and you're good. I mean, I eat like 10 on a busy day. I'll eat 10 of those little pieces.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I love them after meals for sure. Like after dinner, pop one of those in. That's one of my favorite things.
So Robert, I know you've been in the industry a while, but you have a very unique business model and how you do things. And for some of our listeners who may not be too familiar with your brand and your companies, tell us a little bit about your company, your model, where your cigars are made, your special products, a little bit all about the lost and found. Pretend someone's finding out about you the first time. Tell them about your company.
Okay, so Caldwell, I mean, I've been in the industry in one way or the other, I guess, for like 15 years. I started in like cigar services for hotels and restaurants here in Miami, kind of on accident. And I think most of my history is accidental. It's not really intentional. But I started a company distributing cigars to restaurants and hotels in Miami for a friend of mine. I was meaning to just kind of set it up and be an investor. And I've been a consumer of cigars for now about 28 years. So I've always had an affinity for them. I love smoking, whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'll set this thing up and then, I don't know, like just be the quiet partner. And then I ended up running that thing full time. And then from there, I started doing like private label work, largely with Camacho in the beginning. It was Oliva and then Camacho, but I started doing private label work for my accounts. And then that rolled into a partnership with Christian Aroa, where we ended up building a factory in Miami in Wynwood, which at the time was nothing, and then grew into like a neighborhood that's very well known for its art scene and all this type of stuff. And And then from there, that partnership, didn't work out. And then we ended up building Caldwell. And Caldwell was a very simple model. I mean, it was like we wanted to use aged tobaccos. So like very aged, like when we went out to curate, I guess, our tobacco, it was like we want really old tobacco or rare tobacco or tobacco that's grown in smaller quantities, or like we wanted something special with the cigars instead of just doing mass market kind of production cigars in terms of tobacco use. So, and I always used to say when I'd be asked that question, in the cigar industry or in tobacco, you have like very, very large availability of certain tobaccos. And so when you see big tobacco companies make cigars, they're going for quantity, quality, and consistency. And then so the quantity is the most important thing of that. So a lot of stuff is left to the side because it doesn't work for a larger scale project. So we said, okay, we want to deliver a slightly different flavor profile or something more unique. And we can do that with very aged tobacco and more rare tobaccos and not have to hit these metrics of producing a ton of cigars. So we launched the brand very artistically kind of forward, which was a segue from the Wynwood project, which was in Wynwood, which became like an arts district while we were there, and worked very closely with a lot of artists to create our imagery. And then with this whole kind of ethos behind the brand of we want to use very, very well-aged tobacco, but also stuff that's not run of the mill. And so these tobaccos would be used by a manufacturer, but maybe for a special edition or something unique or blah, blah, blah. So we went out there and really kind of found stuff that was out of the norm for our 3 core lines, which was King is Dead, Eastern Standard, Long Live the King, and built those. And then you kind of notice from there, we started adding like a lot of brands. So we did Savages, we did Anastasia, we did Last Czar, and we started adding because all those cigars that we made, the nature of the tobacco was that we couldn't make a ton of them. So once we kind of hit our production maxes on those, we had to start building the brand, by extension instead of vertically, because there's only so much that you can make. And still to this day, I mean, Eastern Standard, there's like a cap on the quantity of cigars we can make on the Arapiraca Connecticut hybrid. The original one, there's a cap. So now you have Eastern Standard, Maduro, you have an Eastern Standard Sun-Grown that kind of dilutes that whole brand a little bit and pulls people off the core so that we can hit that. But I mean, we built the company in that way, and then we only use grade A tobacco. We use the best tobacco available to us. So it was a slightly different concept where we really wanted to focus on these specialty tobaccos. And as I said in the beginning, things on accident with us. We planned to launch Caldwell years ago as a multi-faceted kind of luxury brand company. So we wanted to do 100,000 cigars a year, which to us was like this huge amount of cigars. Right. And then we wanted to do leather goods. We were going to do bags, weekend travel, but we were going to have a whole leather line. And then we were going to do coffee. So the cigars took off so quickly that we kind of folded on everything else and then focused on the cigars. And we sold, I think our original production was like 80,000 cigars or 82,000 cigars. We sold them in like 3 or 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something, but we sold them very quickly. And then we had to focus all our attention on premium cigar manufacturing. So that's kind of the story of Caldwell in terms of like the origin and what about it was a little bit more unique with the manufacturing. And then Lost and Found, again, like I said, who
was working on making your core line cigars? Who are you working with?
It's a small factory called Tabacalera William Ventura out of Dominican Republic.
Is that our good friend Henderson?
Henderson, exactly.
Yeah.
His father and his brother, his father started that factory and then Henderson was there. And then Henderson was kind of running the factory together with his father. And then now his brother Weber came over, now that Henderson has his brand. And then Weber's kind of like the guy running point on the factory. But small family factory. When we started working with them, they had about 1,000 square feet. And then since then, they're up to about 40,000 square feet. So it's grown a lot.
Wow.
At the time that
we've actually, he was just actually here a couple days ago, maybe this last week.
Yeah.
Or was it this week? I can't remember. All my
last
weeks are blurred.
He stayed with me on the weekend.
Yeah. He came up. We bought in his line to our shops. He'll be working with us in a lot of cool projects this year and next year. Very interesting family, really good guy. And we've become a big fan of his cigars. In fact, I saw Alex have one of his cigars at his work desk the other day.
Yeah.
They're good cigars.
No, he does. He makes good stuff, the guy, man. Young guy, too.
Young guy. Like 29 or 31.
Haven't
Alex,
we had him on the show, Abe?
No.
A couple years
no,
ago.
I don't think so, but he'll be coming on very soon.
Okay, maybe we talked to him. I have to
Alex,
look.
I think we robbed you of your moment, man. What is your scene in the background this week? We didn't talk about it.
Oh. So this is Dante and Luigi's restaurant in South Philadelphia, made famous for a mob hit in 1989 on Halloween night.
Castellano?
But no, Paul Castellano was in New York.
Wrong city.
Philadelphia,
God
wrong city.
damn.
Oh, sorry.
It was
Oh my
actually, not to
God.
throw names out, but it was actually Nicky Scarfo Jr. He lived. But this is also my second job I ever had, too. I was a busboy here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. There you go.
How long did you work there?
About 3 years, give or
wow.
take. I mean, I was a kid. I was, a couple days a week busboying. It was a good job, though. Made good money for, a kid in the 90s, 14, 15, 16 years old.
For somebody that doesn't like to go home and visit, man, you do love your, you have hometown pride, huh?
Yeah, but, again, I have a reason for not wanting to go home and visit. Like I said, the only place I ever went after I moved to Florida was I went home. I mean, there's a million places to go in the world, and I just keep going home and spending the same amount of money as if I went somewhere.
I'd be proud to be from South Philly too, though.
There you go. See what I'm saying?
South Philly's are cool. Philly to me is like one of the most, I don't know, unrenowned places. Like it's like every time I go, I'm like, why is this not like Philadelphia to me, and especially South Philly? It's got like that kind of lower Manhattan, like back in the early 2000s vibe, where it's kind of grungy. It's cool. You have like the neighborhood shops. You got the little cafes. You got the butcher. You got the bread guy. It's got a lot of that you don't see in the U.S. anymore at all, and I think that's super special. And I think, and particularly South Philly, I think it's a really cool area, man.
Right. It's one of the last places, like you said, you still find butcher shops, the lost art of shoemakers and that kind of shit that still exists there.
Yeah,
it's one of those places I like to characterize. It got frozen in time.
100%.
Right? It's like frozen in that moment of time, and it's kind of cool to visit, without a doubt. So, Robert, your core line's all being made by the Ventura family at their factory, and no,
most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who else are you working with?
What was the Camacho factory in Honduras now? Whatever they call it, the production factory there.
Got it.
That's owned by Davidoff, I guess. I don't know what they call that factory, but
they make
our Blind Man Bluff lines. 2 of them. So we produce also there.
So working with one of the biggest companies and a very boutique company. It's a good
and actually by design. So when we launched the brands, we had, like I said, we sold so much that we screwed ourselves for several years, where we were constantly on back order. We couldn't fill orders, and then so we needed a solution, and then we were having a conversation of like, what do we do? And then we were speaking to those guys, and it's like, okay, we need kind of everyday price points, because Caldwell at the time was more premium price. So we were like 9 to 13 range. And then so we wanted to build something a little bit more economical that we could just kind of make unlimited quantities of. And that's where Blind Man came around. That there's not really a production cap on that cigar. So we had to export that concept away from the Venturas and go with somebody that could produce whatever we needed to. And then that's where Blind Man was born.
What's some of the challenges of working with 2 different extreme size companies? I mean, because they're pretty much about as opposite side of the spectrum as you can get in size and production, no?
Yeah, I think actually the challenges are the same.
Really?
Yeah. I'd say the biggest challenge is always like communication and pipeline issues. So I think regardless of where you're producing, from the smallest to the biggest, you're always going to run into kind of those. Because it's funny, because all the time we have that conversation internally, right? So it's like, the fucking Venturas, and then the next minute it's like, goddamn, these guys over here. So it's always kind of the same problem that we run into when we run into a problem. And actually, I mean, that extends to we worked with AJ Fernandez, we worked with Drew Estate on projects. We worked with Carrillo. So I think that same exact problem exists all the way through the pipeline, any company that you go to. And I don't know if it's not, I don't know if it's born from those companies or it's just kind of like a consequence of doing what we do. Everybody kind of runs into the same issues all the way through the channels.
Are you having issues now with product, with supply?
Nope. No. We very proudly pivoted COVID like in a really, really good way. So I remember, and I'm very proud of this because I remember like when COVID started kind of like knocking on the door. I was actually on your show just prior to that, which is I think when Ronnie Haisha came down and Matt Booth was there. It was like right before COVID.
Yeah, when Booth just showed up.
Yeah. And then I shot up to New York, and there was like the guy on the subway, like, oh my God, this guy on the subway got COVID. And then I think like a day or two later, it was like an Uber driver got COVID. And I'm like, that's the Uber driver that drove that guy to the hospital. And like right away it clicked with me. And then these two kids at this high school got COVID. And I'm like, that's gotta be this guy's kids. And sure enough, that's what ended up having happened. But we, during that point in time, I called one of my business partners, who's a finance guy and our CFO. And I said, Juan, something weird is going on. Cause I felt a weird vibe very, very much at the beginning of last year of 2020, just in terms of like the marketplace, like something wasn't gelling. I couldn't figure it out. It was like, I got a girlfriend that you've known forever. And then all of a sudden, like something's wrong and she's not telling you. And that's how I felt the market was. I felt like something was strange. And particularly coming out of New York and California, there was like this weirdness. And on that trip to New York, I noticed like I went to go to a retailer and it was like everybody had to sanitize. And like he told me that his business had collapsed. Lounge business, everybody was coming in, grabbing a cigar and leaving. So those are two markets that are very, kind of inclined to be that way, where, oh my God, something's going on. Like, let's kind of freak out a little bit about it. And then, so I call my business partner, and then he's like, let me make a couple calls. So he actually called the banks that we work with. And he's like, hey, we want to extend our lines of credit to see what's going on kind of in the back end of the world financially. And they're like, nope. Everybody just said no. And we're like, we're like very credit worthy. We don't run up debt. We're very good company when it comes to those things. And everybody just said no to us. So the only thing we could get was a line of credit from American Express that had a prepaid interest.
Wow.
And so we grabbed that line because that's all that was there. And that line was horrible. Like it was 8% up front that you prepaid. And then they'd start auto debiting you starting the next day for the loan balance over the course of like 8 months. But we said, okay, let's prepare for the worst. And then we blew out every cigar that we had in Miami on like a 20% off. Like we just dealed out a little bit on everything to empty the warehouse. And then we imported a ton of cigars to Miami. And then the world shut down. And then like kind of in harmony with those moves, we started producing a lot of cigars in Dominican Republic. So we got a lot of cigars made the first few weeks of COVID, and then DR shut down. And DR was shut down for a while. Honduras, Nicaragua was like these rolling shutdowns.
Yeah, DR was the longest shutdown.
Yeah, and then Henderson and his dad, they have the factory that they run now, but they also have the older factory, which was the one that we had just kind of grown out of. So they split the workforce between two factories. And so now they were compliant with government with like the 50% work, or personnel thing, because we split between two factories and we just kept rolling full steam. So on the backside of it, when everybody started getting on back order and stuff like that, we hit it in stride, and we've had next to no back order at all through all of COVID on almost anything. Maybe a SKU here or there, but I mean, we ramped like packaging. We ramped out of Portugal. We ordered tons of bands. So the cash that we brought in from kind of blowing out the Miami inventory March of last year, all that went right into production of bands and boxes and more cigars. And so, I mean, a lot of this, it was a Hail Mary is what it was. I mean, there was no science behind it. It was just kind of like the theoretical, okay, it's like balls to the wall, all or nothing. And I think that we handled that very, very well. And we were rewarded as a company for taking the risk. Our sales went up, very, very much last year, as I think they did for a lot of people. And then this year they really exploded, because this year we've just been the whole time like lockstep and stride and had the mechanics behind the brand, and we haven't had any issue at all with anything. So
I'm looking for your
It was.
warehouse.
It was.
I knew what you were doing, Abe. I
I'm-
knew
I'm-
you were doing that.
I'm looking for
yeah,
your-
and there were a couple in there.
I'm looking for your warehouse order to see how bad your back orders were. Hold on.
There's nothing backed up. There's.
Hold on.
I guarantee you, everything shipped.
I got 9 different folders depending on what stage of the process they're in, but I think you're in this stack here. I was
There's a
trying to see.
system.
There's a system. It's insane. If I got hit by a bus right now, this company would be fucked.
I already did that one, Abe. So that's in your completed stack.
I looked at it. It's not in it.
It's done.
There's something got moved when we were going through that other project last night. It's here.
No, we haven't had issues. If so, like I said, it's been a skew here or there.
That's a completed one. That's why.
Yeah, it's a completed one.
Yeah, but
You're welcome.
no. It's listen. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I literally picked the worst time in the last 30 years to say, "Hey, let's just open up a warehouse." It's like literally the worst. Half these companies are fulfilling half the orders. At best.
Some are fulfilling none of the order.
Yeah. See, your
That's
part.
insane.
Your part was complete, but Briggs wasn't. That's why. Let's take a look here.
Wow. He's gonna go.
Back ordered Eastern Standard Cream Crush. You know what? You don't have a lot of
No, he doesn't. It wasn't a lot.
and
Couple
savages.
fews.
Listen, it wasn't a small order. Only 2 items were back ordered. Not shabby.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Savages, we got a buyout of like 300 boxes. That was for a private event.
You should have pulled my
And that's-
first.
No, this was in front of you. This was like
Oh,
we had
before me.
we had an event here in Miami that a local retailer like freaked out and they needed like a ton of, and we don't carry 300 boxes of any one SKU at any time. We import every Monday.
I'm going to tell you something, because the amount of errors and misships and everything. I mean, I have, you can see behind me. I mean, I got folders and folders and stacks of invoices. Your company was pretty on point with everything.
Thank you.
It was one of the easiest invoices to read.
I was going to say that too. In putting the info in, it was I didn't have to double back off another sheet. It was straightforward. It was
Straightforward,
appreciated.
no mistakes. You actually had the right show deal on there. Didn't have to call because you forgot to put. Very, very well done, sir. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad, because I think if you compare that to 2 years ago, it was probably a very different story.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
this is the warehouse stuff. All
That's the
different-
back order stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. This, all the different stages of where it's at in the process of getting entered on the web and paid.
Woo.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So listen, we got to take a short break, Robert. After the break, I want to get a little bit more about the Lost and Found project, the charity stuff you do. We got a good question
Perfect.
for you from our good friend Eddie Guerra in our As the Record Spins Avo segment. We're coming up on what, number 2, or we're on number 2 now, Alex?
Number two.
Number two, and next week will be number 1, Tale of the Tape, season 2, Pro Wrestlers Edition. We're gonna have a lot of fun in hour 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Keep it lit.
The H. Upmann 1844 Classic is a medium-bodied cigar with wonderful flavor notes of toasted almonds, cocoa, coffee, and just a hint of spice. Featuring an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade wrapper, you get wonderful aroma notes of sweet coffee and chocolate. Available in a Corona, Robusto, Toro, and Churchill, this is a great time to experience the nuances of nature with the H. Upmann 1844 Classic, a shade above others.
Surgeon General warning: cigars are not a safe alternative to cigarettes.
Hey, babe,
Yeah?
I'm almost out of wine and I want to order some online. Where should I order from this time?
KMAWines.com, of course.
KMAWines.com? What's that?
What's that? What's that? Hold on a second. Let me show you. You see, KMA has teamed up with Bonner Fine Wines to offer KMA listeners a fantastic deal on a Malbec 3-wine sampler. You see, here is their famous Malbec, grown at an altitude of 8,950 feet. 3 wines from the edge of the world. An old French Malbec variety no longer found in Europe. These 3 wines, 200 years in the making, yours, KMA listeners, for 53% off. Normally $130, but like I said, KMA listeners get 53% off. That makes it $69.99. So what do you think?
I think we should order.
I agree. And done.
Welcome back, everyone, to hour 2 of KMA Talk Radio. It's really funny because some people operate like clockwork. When we go to break every KMA show, I hear the office doors start to slam.
Oh, you should watch the video. I've never seen this kid move so fast.
Alex runs to the bathroom every KMA break. I hear him. There goes Alex.
Yeah.
Now, Paul,
Make it back in time.
Paul was even too lazy to even upload a new commercial playing the same one 3 weeks in a row.
That
you don't change a class.
That isn't even his commercial.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but Kevin and Jess put more effort into one commercial than I think Paul put into all the ones he's ever made.
I foolishly thought that commercial would motivate Paul to really put something together.
No, he has no shame. Paul has no shame.
He hasn't even asked for the microphones back.
No shame.
It was a big week.
You
have the microphones?
Every week
you have them?
You packed them. He doesn't even know he has them.
I guess I don't.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
If I do, they're in a storage unit in Wellington somewhere.
I'm going to rename Paul Shameless Paul.
You had the perfect opportunity too, while having a glass of Bonner wine, while saying goodbye to your house. Like
I'm not drinking right now because we're on that stupid diet.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll have to use some food coloring in a glass of water.
I'm gonna make a commercial.
Seriously, I mean, it's just.
I'm just going to make a commercial.
I wish you would.
This point has become.
I already got it down.
This point has become the disappointment every week during the show. This is the disappointing moment. Speaking forget about me. Even our fans who are busting on him has no effect on the man. Because Paul's the type of guy, like Alex knows me. If there's something I got to do, I will stay here to get it done. Paul's the type of guy. Oh, it's 9:45. It's time to go to bed.
9:45. Yeah.
Puts his robe and slippers on.
I'm still processing orders at 9:45.
He has his evening Earl Grey, and then he's in bed by 10:01.
Hey, we had one of those moments 2 days ago. 10:30 at night. Ooh, what are you still doing here? What the fuck are you still doing here?
I came out of my office to use a copier. It was like 10:30 at least, and I come out there. Alex is sitting there like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's like, and his answer was the right answer. When do you think shit can get done? And it is. It's when no one's bothering us. No one is calling us. We're not being pulled in 20 directions. I can get more done between 8 and midnight than I can a whole day.
Oh, yeah. 2-3 hours with nobody around is better than a full day.
Yeah. I when I ran the theater on Long Island, it was the same thing. As soon as everybody left at 6 o'clock and the show was up and running, forget it. That's when I did work. The rest of the day, it's just dealing with people.
So I'm gonna put a poll up on KMA this week. Should it be Living in the Past Paul or Shameless Paul? New nickname for Paul DeGracco. Which will be Living in the Past Paul DeGracco or my trusty sidekick Shameless Paul? We'll see which one goes.
And now the Italian scallion doesn't sound so bad.
Right. All right, Robert, before we get into a couple of your other projects and things you do there, we have a segment called As the Record Spins, sponsored by Avo Cigars. Our good friend Eddie Guerra has a question specifically for you today. All right, I just got to interject because it looks like Shameless Paul is winning, and I already have the intro redone in my head. For the opening segment of KMA Talk Radio, when we have Duffy say Shameless Paul, we're gonna have the big yellow dress picture.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh crap.
Oh, I got it all in my head. This is gonna come out perfect. All right, Robert. We have a question for you from Eddie Guerra of Avo Cigars, and I gotta admit, Eddie gives us a list of questions, and we pick one every week. And sometimes the hardest battle is. That question is not going to be good for this guest. And some of them are weird, some of them are good. we looked at this one and said, "Yeah, this is probably right up Robert's alley." So, Robert, would you rather be able to breathe underwater or communicate with animals, and why?
Communicate with animals.
And why?
I prefer animals to people. Like, I really like them. Like, I love animals. And so I feel like it's a one-sided friendship, if that makes any sense. And I have like, yeah, and I already try to do it. Like dogs and shit like that's easy. But I have like, back in the day in Miami, they had there's a hotel here called the Biltmore that had like, they would do fox hunting. So they bring down fox, let them go, and then people would shoot them. Oh. And then some of them escaped. And so there's red fox. And I have a family of red fox that live in my backyard. They dug like a little burrow under a tree. And then so I went online and then I figured out like the noises fox make, which I'm not going to do here, but I like go out and like make noises and shit at them and try to get them to respond. I'll show you a video. I'm pretty good at it.
Please do. I'll post it on KMA. Please do.
Let me send it to you. I have one where I'm like communicating.
I'm going to put it up.
Yeah.
Wow. There it is.
Gotta find it.
Shameless Paul.
There we go.
Oh yeah. That's a classic right there.
The things you do.
Well, it's very long.
Listen to me. The sad thing about that, Alex, is that looks like it might have been like a head placement, but it's not.
No.
That's Paul.
No, it's not. That's Paul.
I know. It looks
That's
like
the real Paul.
That is true.
Shameless Paul. But I think I'd find breathing underwater to be more useful. My whole concern with the talking
100%.
My whole concern with the talking to animals thing is you don't know how they're going to talk. So you might be able to communicate with them, but you might get like, Lenny from Of Mice and Men, hello, Robert, and there won't be much like dialogue there. It'd be like simple 1 or 2 word answers. So
I don't know. I think my dogs would have a lot to say.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. Your dogs have a shitload to say.
Thank God you can't speak to animals.
Yeah,
You'd have them on the show. I don't need
Help
that.
me. Save us.
What would they say about you crying?
Get me out of
when
here.
you saying goodbye to your house.
They weren't in the house either, Robert. They were here.
I was very upset that I wasn't included in the little pre-jam because I had a lot to say about that.
Go ahead, say it now, man.
This is your time.
You want to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
crying. I mean, which part did you want?
Have you ever said goodbye to a house, like openly and verbally?
Yeah.
No, but I think if I did, it'd be like, "Hey, fuck you,"
Right.
Like who really?
See you later.
You might love where you live, but the day that you leave, you're like, oh, I don't know.
Not Paul.
Because Paul romanticizes about his life being like a Broadway show. He tries to make his life as it would appear on camera on Broadway. Goodbye, home. Thank you for all you've done for us. Thank you for keeping us safe from all the danger in our upscale Wellington neighborhood. This fucking guy.
By the way, you guys are lucky you live in Palm Beach County, man. I love Palm Beach.
Bro,
County.
no kidding. The fact that he used the words "thank you for keeping us safe." I mean, it's a classic, Paul. Classic, Paul, man. Unbelievable. All right, let's start talking about this new variation, the spinoff you did called Lost and Found. For the people who are unfamiliar with it, this program that you run, tell us a little bit about Lost and Found.
Sure. So when I was working, like I mentioned prior, my cigar industry, air quotes, career started like with a hotel and restaurant thing. And so I was working with a lot of brands and I'd go visit a lot of factories and got to know a lot of owners of a lot of companies. And then I started working with Christian, and then I started working on the Caldwell project after that. And then, so I was kind of like just, going around and visiting factories and trying to figure out what worked. And I've always I like old cigars. I like aged cigars. And so I was the guy who'd like go into the retail store and find like the yellow cellophane cigar, like look for that stuff before it was a thing, I guess. I mean, I just appreciated that in a different way. And I always had. And so I would go to somebody's factory, and it started, I think, at Oliva. Like I went to Oliva and they had a cigar called Special S. And then after that, they did like V, O, and G, but the S was like this special cigar. And then I think when they launched the O and the G, and then the V like it was just another letter, and it kind of detracted from what the S was meant to be. So they killed the line, which is what happens. And then so I went to Oliva, and I, oh man, I really like that special S. And then Gilberto's like, on my way out the door, like, here's a bundle. So it's kind of a trick that I picked up from visiting other manufacturers. I'd always reference stuff that I liked that I knew they no longer made if the cigar had in fact disappeared. And guys would always kind of hit me with a bundle on the way out the door. So I was in DR visiting somebody, and I had the same comment. And then they hit me with a couple bundles coming out of the door. And then I was working on Caldwell, and we had Tony Bellato owns a brand called La Barba Cigars, which we distribute. And that concept had kind of been worked. The blend work had been done in Miami at the Wynwood factory. And at the time he was producing with Christian, but then he was going to port manufacturing to us. And I went up to meet with him in Ohio where he lives. And I brought some of these cigars, and he smoked them, and his dad smoked them, and his eyes just went like this. And he's like, what are these cigars? And I told him what they were. And he's like, well, where'd you get them? Because they're discontinued things. I'm like, well, I was down in DR and I got them at XYZ factory. And he's like, they just gave them to you? And I'm like, yeah, I got this scam where I visit guys and I say how much I liked it, kind of hump their leg a little bit. And then they always hit me with a bundle on the way out the door. And he says, can you get more? I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. So then I picked up the phone, and sure enough, I could get them. And then, so he's like, okay, whatever. There's 5,000 cigars. I'll take them. So then he just wanted them bundled up in paper and was going to stick them in his retail stores, Tony's dad. And then Tony and Jacqueline, who are the other two partners on Lost and Found, they came up with this concept of like quirky names and doing like kind of funky, weird shit. And then, so that was One Night Stand, Pepper Cream Soda, and then Lost Reserve, which was like the one, it was like 50 cigars. One of the first things that we did. And then they stuck them on the shelf and nothing happened. I mean, they just like died on the shelf, if you will, for a few months. And then we launched Caldwell. And I really blame Cigar Cartel at that point in time, because I think Cigar Cartel, somehow they found out about these cigars. And Tony called me from a Monday to a Friday. They'd sold like 5,000 cigars out of their store. And he's like, can you get more? And at that point in time, we had just kind of thrown a name on it, and we called them Impromptu, because it was like an impromptu cigar thing for his store. And then we built the concept Lost and Found kind of around the success of that original importation of those cigars. And then just kept trucking forward. And then it was never really meant to be anything. It was kind of just like a way to exercise creativity and have fun doing what we were doing, which was like getting these old cigars. And then as the brand grew, we started to get a lot of manufacturers reaching out to us like, hey, I got these cigars, I got those cigars, and a lot of really interesting cigars. And then it turned into a proper business. And then if you want me to segue into anything from there.
Well, I want to step back for 1 second to clarify a couple things, because you mentioned, Tony Bellato and La Barba Cigars. You say you distribute their cigars. So do you do all your own distribution?
Mm-hmm.
So because not a lot of guys.
Well, we have brokers too. We have a mix.
But you ship your own product out of your own factories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you made a deal with Tony, and so if anybody ordered his cigars, that would literally be coming out of your warehouse, you were shipping it to him.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, we took over like his production management. So it's his own brand, it's his own blends, it's his own communication with the factory. But then we do his import. We do like, inventory maintenance, those types of things. So kind of streamline his process a little bit for him.
So I'm actually smoking your new Pepper Cream Habano. All right. This is actually, I don't know if it's psychological, but it just went awesome with the licorice I had earlier. This is different from the original release. It's a different color band.
Yeah.
And you decided to put this edition in boxes, right?
Yes.
What prompted that change from the ordinary packaging to boxes?
Well, this is the second time that we've done that. So the initial thing for Lost and Found, like we work with a lot of factories on Lost and Found. So it's very hard to streamline packaging into the factories that we work with. So let's say that we're getting Lost and Found from 6 or 7 different sources. I have to coordinate packaging into every one of those sources. I got to get the bands in. I got to get the boxes in. Some of these factories have their own box factories, or it's third party. We're working with 3 different countries on these projects. So the boxes have always added like a very unnecessary, unfriendly element to what we do, as well as the bands. So when we started out, it was no bands, no boxes. And then the brand was supposed to speak to you through the sticker that had the blend information, all that like relevant information on it. And then that's how it was sold into retail. And then it was never a good project at all for brick and mortar. It was always an online type of sales opportunity, because at retail, it's like a cigar with no band. So it doesn't speak to a consumer, or it doesn't speak to a consumer in a premium way. And then so as things started getting kind of weird the last 18 months with like people doing paper packs, which I mentioned, this is the second time we've done this. So several years ago, we did the same exact pivot, which was a hard pivot out of packs into boxes. There was so much like noise in that marketplace that we wanted to separate ourselves out of it. And we went in, like we had a cigar called Suavecito. We did Backdoor Bambi. We did a variety of runs that were in boxes with bands, but the logistics of that whole thing are a nightmare for a brand like Lost and Found, because we have to think 6 or 8 months in advance on launches instead of being agile and being able to pull something off in 30 or 60 days. So we made kind of a hard pivot this summer, a decision, as I mentioned to you, at some point prior, to put stuff in boxes and put bands on it. And going forward, we're going to do everything boxed and bands. And just because we want to get away from the noise, because I'm not sure what happened, and I don't want to shit on anybody, but I'm going to do it anyways. At some point, there's these massive amounts of back orders. Nobody's got bands. Nobody's got boxes. People don't have cigars. People can't get shit imported. There's no stickers. There's no cello, whatever it is. Then all these paper packs arise. So it's like, okay, we got cigars, we got paper, and there's, sticker mule. So the solution to a lot of people's revenue issues, I think, have been paper packs. So there's all this fucking noise. And so what started happening to me, really, I started kind of seeing it in the wintertime, and it really started picking up coming into the spring. And I'm getting tagged every day on product that's paper wrapped bundles with a sticker on it. And people are like, man, I love this new Lost and Found, whatever. And I'm like, that's not mine. And so we made kind of a hard pivot, which is not the best thing to do, I think, for the brand in terms of revenue. But like I said before, it's a fun project for us. And then also, you mentioned the charitable component that we'll bring back up later. But it's the right thing for me. Like, I don't want to be attached to any of that fucking noise. Thank you, Cooper. And so I don't want to be attached to that noise, because it's bullshit for me, and it's not, by the way, I did not create the marketplace. The marketplace was created by Jonathan Drew. The first paper packs that came out 10 years ago were Muat. Exactly. So we took that concept and we ran with it. So, okay, paper pack bundle, creative sticker, and we were the only ones doing it. And we caught a lot of bullshit for doing it through the whole, point that we did it. And I think that last spring I said, okay, fine, fuck it. I can start building a plan, which, by the way, is not fun for me, a packaging plan. So bands, boxes, this, that, all this shit. But now I'm having to, like, I picked up an extra day of work a week to do it, because now I have to design bands. I have to design boxes. I have to, prove packaging. I have to do all this bullshit between like 7 or 8 factories.
So are you putting in now 3 whole days a week?
Come on, man.
I'm sorry.
Wednesday,
I thought I was talking to Paul. I'm sorry.
I mean, Wednesday to Thursday. Come on, man. You don't have a 6-day weekend? Come on.
Listen, you live the life of Riley. This guy's sending me pictures from food markets. He's all over the world. I love it, bro. You work hard. Listen, like my motto: work hard, play hard. You play hard.
Wasn't he like? Weren't you on the phone and he was like in the slums of France? Like
last week? Market. He's showing me this big area. He's like, hey, it's like, dude, we're gonna have all this food out
Abe,
here.
I own an olive oil company.
I believe it. Why not?
In Spain. And so it's super cool. I don't know if I showed it to you. It's an amazing brand. I'll send you a picture right now. It's super cool. And so anyways, I was in France with a buyer of mine who does provisions for like luxury yachts, like 300 plus foot, like crazy. Like he does octopus and he does all these crazy boats. And so he brought me to the food market, because that's where they buy all their fresh like fruit and veg and all that stuff. And like, so all of it comes into France from Europe and really all over the world. And then, I mean, they bring in, I don't even know how many square feet. It's called Rungis, Rungis. It's the most amazing thing. It's the size of an airport. It's next to an airport, next to a train station. all this shit comes in at 2 a.m. and by 7, every stall's empty. So we went there for some meetings, and it really blew my mind. But it's in like a really, like just horrific part of Paris. So it was super freaky, but that's where I was. So I'm like I'm like the design partner. I don't really.
If you run into Robert Caldwell at any given moment, he could have olive oil, fresh baked lavash bread, licorice. I mean, he's look at that.
I just realized that this is on the desk.
That's a Jupiter guy.
Was there a mango one too?
That's the garlic, and the other one was ghost pepper.
Ghost pepper. I know we have an open one in the employee fridge too that we use. Oh God,
ghost pepper.
Whew. So I want to get to
Abe. I'm sending you my oil picture right now.
I got a bunch of stuff. I'll post this all on KMA after the show. So we're going to get to the charity component and a couple other things. Of course, we want to talk about the PCA show this year, but this concept, right, of finding cigars pre-made, just repackaging them, you were very open with it about the beginning. There was no delusion. This is what we're doing. We're finding cigars that have already been made, been sitting around. We're going to repackage them, call them Cup Funky, and put them back out in the market. Very open and honest. Since you started that program, do you feel that there have been companies and other organizations who've kind of jumped on the bandwagon of this model and maybe not so open about it, and they're out there and all they're doing is making bands, and I like to call them packaging companies. Because I think you're lost.
Yeah,
and found,
for sure.
I think you're lost and found has kind of started a new segment in this business that's moved on beyond just what you do.
Well, he said it on one of our shows, one of his first appearances with us when they talked about Lost and Found, that like he's like, people do this all the time. We're being honest about it and finding shit that we like.
But I think it's become like a bigger segment of our cigar industry. What do you think?
100%.
Yeah,
I agree entirely. I mean, it's become its own segment entirely, and that's kind of one of our reasons for like. So when we had this happen a few years ago, and I think that the animals out of the cage, if you will. So like several years ago, we had like this happen where guys started paper packing, stickering. And then we did the hard pivot into boxes, and the entire sector died. Like it disappeared. And then we went back into paper packs. And I don't think we'll ever go back into paper packs for a different reason. And we will have some product that still comes in paper packs. But that's two things. One of it would be a charitable thing or store exclusive thing, like those type of things that don't make sense for us to box and band. But we have a different there's different reasons for doing that. But when that happened originally, it kind of stopped the market. And now I think like the animals out of the cage, I don't think you're going to slow that down, but I think there's going to be a house of cards that collapses where guys are just like, what is all this shit? Because there's so much shit out there. And then how do you identify it? And then if you're a single cigar consumer, like, I mean, how do you keep track of these cigars and this type of thing? And it's funny because when I used to scroll social media and I'd see somebody smoking a cigar with no band, I knew it was a lost and found. And every time it was. Now it's a cigar with no band. It's like a brand I never heard of, or this or that, or like any of these iterations of things that have arisen. And so now it's like almost never a lost and found. And our reason for not really respecting a band to put it on was because cigars never used to come with bands. So back in the day, a cigar would come sold in a box, never in a single. And guys would open a box of cigars and they'd like kind of lean it open and check like the 20 or 25 cigars that were in it, close the cigar box back up and take it. And the cigar spoke for itself. And that was kind of the ethos of Lost and Found. Like, these are damn good cigars. They're going to speak for themselves. They don't need a band. And a lot of old school manufacturers feel the same way about their cigars. Like, packaging is second to the blend. But at this current cigar economy, the packaging is more important than the blend. And then back to what we're doing with Lost and Found, like, we have our forward releases, like we'll have some of the funky fun shit coming. It'll come in boxes. And then we do have a couple like things that will come in paper packs. And that's not actually because we're doing it, but it's because it's inventory that we already held. Like, I have a concept that's called Secret Stash, which is like literally my secret stash. I got a ton of cigars that I already bought that I never sold, that are from one manufacturer, that are very special, that are very well aged. They're already in packs. They're already here in Florida. They're going to get sold off in packs, but very slowly. But then I was having a conversation with another manufacturer about some of these cigars that we buy, and they're incredibly old cigars, and they're fragile and they're delicate. And so I'm smoking one right now. Like, if you can see, I mean, it's falling apart while I smoke it, which is a consequence of me not putting it in a humidor, but also the age. Those cigars need to go in a box because they need to be protected. And then also I want to respect the cigar in a way that it should be respected. It should be put into a box. It should have a band on it because the consumer should know it's a special product. And that cigar in particular, like this one's a 2004 vintage, 6. Sorry, I just looked at the label. It's an incredibly old cigar. And then there's actually instructions that are coming with that product. Do not punch cut the cigar. Like, when you punch it, you're going to fucking destroy it. It's too old. So some of these cigars are too old, but we want to respect the cigar and put it in a box. Before it was like, we don't need to put it in a box because the cigar speaks for itself. But now we want to cut through the noise, and we want to make sure that that cigar is given the respect that it should have. And our footprint can be smaller. Like, I have no doubt that Lost and Found will sell less cigars next year than it did this year by putting them in the box and the bands. But at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is my pet project. I do it for fun. I like making cigars. I like finding cigars. And the other thing too is, like, a lot of cigars that we used to be able to get, they're no longer available. We've bought them all.
Well, this is my point too, because there's a comment by Charlie Creekmore. It's a simple concept, Lost and Found, but it can be copied and duplicated by many. But here's the reality: it really can't be. So, I mean, the beauty of what a Lost and Found project is that as the years go by, there's more Lost and Founds available, and it works when you have one guy doing it. But when you start getting more and more of these, there just aren't Lost and Found cigars for 10, 20 different guys to make. So what happens is they're just buying whatever they can and trying to emulate what you've done with Lost and Found.
100%. And actually, I have a manufacturer.
They're not hunting and looking for rarities. No. They're just buying stuff and trying to emulate what you created with Lost and Found.
And Abe, the first phone call is me. So, like, if a factory's got cigars to get rid of, the first phone call is me, because I'll pay for half them up front. I'll come up with a concept. I mean, I'll find a way to digest the cigars. So whether I'm bundling them out, cello 20s and selling them off as bulk, but a lot of these things, I mean, I'll come in, I'll buy 80 or 100,000 cigars. I'll take 10,000 or 20,000 for Lost and Found. The other ones I'll bulk out as bulk 20s, bulk 25 nude cellos, and they become like $4, bulk cigars that you see in everybody's store. But I mean, like, I consume a ton of this product, and I know what's out there because I get the phone calls, and I think I get them first. I'd like to argue that I get them first because I'm the biggest buyer of this shit. Well, and I know,
there's also an industry of relationships, right? So
yeah,
you've been around, you've been doing this. I think people respect you that this has been your project and your idea, and you're just going to always be known as that guy for that project.
100%. And the other thing is, I'm a solution to some of these factories. Like, one of the factories that we work with, I was talking to some of the finance guys behind that company. They were very impressed because they'd always had consistently like several 100,000 unaccounted for cigars that were unsaleable at the end of the year, whether they were too old, killed sizes, killed brands, color sorted out, whatever it was. But they'd always had this dead inventory, right? So they came into 2021 or 2020 with like almost no dead inventory. And they'd been dealing with accountants for years, like, what's the solution for this? And then we became the solution for that company. And then we've done that with a lot of brands that we've worked with where they've had this stock, and then we've been able to digest the stock. And then one of the reasons that you saw, like, Lost and Found exploded really in 2020 in a bigger way because we bought every fucking cigar that was out there at the beginning of COVID, because we were getting calls from factories like they needed to shore up capital. And I'm a very conservative guy. Like, I don't spend money on myself. If I make money, I reinvest it in shit or whatever. So when COVID hit, like I said, I kind of just said, fuck it. And I threw out, and I went out and I bought every goddamn cigar that was available to me. And I'm like, I'll figure out what to do with them later. And then that's when I started doing bulk 20s, bulk 25s, private label stuff, getting rid of the stuff that I didn't find was useful for Lost and Found. But I know what inventory's out there. And I had a guy contact me a few weeks ago that was looking to buy inventory from a mid-sized factory, that the factory was claiming that it was several years old. And I know the guy, it'd be like if you called me. It's a guy that I like, a guy I respect. And he said, hey, the factory's claiming that this inventory is 2017 or 18. And I know it's not, because I bought every fucking cigar that factory had. And I didn't want to throw the factory under the bus, but I said to the guy, I said, listen, man, I like you. I respect you. I would not buy those cigars. Like if I was you, I wouldn't buy those cigars. They're good cigars, but I wouldn't buy them. Like if you catch my drift. And it's a small to mid-sized manufacturer that, again, is seeing the dollars that are out there right now with guys procuring these aged, air quotes, cigars. But I bought out all their inventory in 2020, and I was offered this list too. And I know it's fresh manufactured product. It's like 90 to 180 days old. And they're manufacturing for whomever is going to come in and buy it. And they're stating the age is older than it is. I don't play those games, you know? And so the thing is, there's only so much dead stock that's out there, and I've already sifted through it. And I saw a brand come out a year and a half ago that they announced the factory they were working with, and they got all this old shit, and it's old. There's no negotiating whether or not those cigars are as old as they say they are. They are. Those are cigars that were rolled between 1990 and 2005 or 6, and they have many cigars. They have an excess of 1 million cigars at that age and cool sizes like diademas and all this wild shit. They're very good prices. They're dead. The cigars don't work. They're too old. And so I smoked them. And so the issue with cigars is like wine, man. You got a bottle of wine, it's 60 years old. Do you trust that bottle? It might be corked. A lot of these cigars lose it. So there's certain cigars that are great and there's certain cigars that aren't great. And then so you have to sift through the mess. And so like we have a manufacturer that we purchase a lot of cigars from, and a lot of them are very aged cigars and very beautiful cigars. But a lot of those cigars are dead, or a lot of cigars you have to really look for what you're looking to find in that cigar. And maybe it's there, but to me, a cigar, how long do you give a cigar to prove itself to you? 3 puffs? If it's not speaking to you in the first 3 minutes, you throw it in the fucking ashtray.
Yeah.
So I mean, there might be some product out there, but I think we've sifted through most of this stuff. And I mean, it's not saying that we got all of it, but I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's just not as prevalent as a lot of people would like to tend to consumers to believe. And listen, when there's no cigars out there, are these brands going to sell the shit to you? Because we have an issue like that. We have like several 100,000 cigars that we've ordered for lost and found use, or for private label use, or for, you know, private label projects that we're doing with retailers, other manufacturers. Because we also supply, like I source a lot of other manufacturers with aged product. The shit got sold out from underneath me, and it didn't get sold out from underneath me to like a competitor. It got consumed. I mean, like that brand has a use for this product. So they call me and they're like, hey, you know, we got these cigars. We know that we promised them to you, but sorry, we're going to use them. I'm like, hey, listen, no problem, whatever. You know, like, let me know if more stuff arises. We got the same problem in regular product right now. Mm-hmm. You know, people think it's the opposite way around. We're opening a warehouse. We're putting in these big orders and like, oh man, manufacturers should love it. No, they hate it right now. But what they're doing is in their head, they're saying, well, we need this to sell, and we could sell it to Abe, but then we can't fulfill these 100 customers' orders. So do we make one guy happy, or do we try to make 100 people happy? And you know, I can't argue logic, but yeah, they were trying to make 100 people happy. So, I mean, part of the problem we're dealing with now is we're placing orders after our opening warehouse order in smaller doses to try to make sure that we have a full warehouse to open up with. I mean, it's crazy, literally crazy right now. So these lost and found, have they always been tied to a charity, or was that something a concept you started after later? Because I know some are, some aren't. I'm not sure how that model works. Well, so technically all of it is, right? Okay. So in different ways. So what happened, I think that, so Richard Branson, who I think is like one of the most amazing entrepreneurs ever, he wrote a book that was speaking about how it's very somewhat irresponsible for a private business individual to give money to charity in a personal way, like unless you're kind of at the end of life or so. And that's at least how I interpreted parts of the book. And he said, okay, if you're a creative entrepreneur, why not build a business which benefits charity? So and it's the same concept, like, okay, if I'm in an airplane, the airplane loses oxygen, you put the mask on yourself first. So you as a business entrepreneur, you need to protect yourself, your future, and your interests, and then you can protect those around you. So if you starve yourself of capital earlier on, you can no longer help people. So the argument was like, okay, take care of yourself and then take care of the rest. And then so he has a lot of business concepts that have charitable benefactors. And I read this book and I was really moved by it because I'm a lot of things and I'm assumed to be a lot of things and all this type of shit. But I really like I hate humanity. I just fucking hate everything. But people that are unable to take care of themselves and also animals and like, I mean, I care about like bigger picture shit, I guess, in a different way. And so I read this book. I was moved by the book. My wife read the book. And then my wife said, why don't you do something like this with Caldwell? Which Caldwell, we have done charitable things. And I'm like, we can't do it. We're too set. And she's like, how about Lost and Found? So pre-COVID, we'd kind of slated. One of them was Cigar for Warrior, that we wanted to do a project with them. And then we wanted to do one for ASPCA. And then we had another one was like an ocean plastic initiative that we were going to do like Lost and Found releases this year. And then when COVID hit, this year being 2020, last year. So when COVID hit, I went for a bike ride and I went to an area that's somewhat close to my house. It's South Miami that has like a small commercial district. And there's not really a lot of like homeless people there, or at least you don't see them. And then when I went, everything was super quiet and there were a lot of homeless people there that had just kind of populated, I guess, a little bit, or were more visible because there was less non-homeless people there. And then all the businesses were shut. There was nobody on the street. And I felt bad. So I came back to my house and, I grabbed a bunch of granola bars and bottles of water and shit because I realized these people weren't getting handouts. They weren't getting food and stuff, and went down and gave stuff away with my wife. And then at the same time, I'd seen a thing that had come out on the soup kitchens that were like lying down the street and, food banks lying down the street. And there was not enough supply of food for families in need. So we decided to roll out a project called No Free Lunch, like that afternoon, which benefited soup kitchens and homeless shelters and food banks. So we ran that initiative. And I think at the end of the day, we fed about 100,000 people with that concept. Wow. And then, yeah, that was really strong. And actually, we had retailers that like doubled our donations in their markets. And then we had cigar media that came in. I'm not going to mention names because they did it anonymously, but we had some compounding efforts where we donated, let's say 10,000. We were matched by a retailer, which was then matched by a cigar publication. Wow. So the impact was like 30K. And then here locally in Miami, we had a big benefactor step up to our charitable initiatives last year. And they said, we will double anything that your organization gives. So when they made that offer to us, we said, okay, we need to do everything that we can. So after that was the crisis that we saw with the riots and things like that occurring. And we're not a political company, but we identify when there's injustice in the world, or like at least lack of opportunity. So when the rioting was occurring, things like that, we said, okay, I recognize that there's imbalances that exist, that are always going to exist. What can I do? And necessarily, I don't feel like, I don't know. But then I kind of like looked into it. So I said, okay. And it's not a question of black, white, brown, green, yellow, other, but it's a question of like economic opportunity. So we started looking into inner cities that had tremendous amount of problems. So the two that we identified largely were Los Angeles, California, and Chicago, Illinois. And then we partnered with two organizations, one in each city. One of them, the LA organization, provided after-school education via the arts to bring children off the street and in to learn about the arts, whether it's music, design, graphic design, whatever the hell. But they were working with Hollywood and Los Angeles creative companies to provide like after-school education to inner city youth that kind of turned to the streets, I guess, to pass time. And then we found another one that was in Chicago that provided south side of Chicago tutoring and after-school education services to children that wanted to learn, that came from families that couldn't afford, Kumon and shit like that like other people can. And then from there, we participated with the Tunnels to Tower, which is largely 9/11 organization, first responders. We did a release, 100% of benefit went to that. So we partnered with Protocol Cigars on that because Juan was a 9/11 first responder. So we said, we want you involved. And we did a joint venture release gave everything to that organization. Then we turned the corner and we did one called El Pavo, which fed about 5,000 families here locally in Miami, full Thanksgiving dinner.
I
So
just found some of those bundles.
Yeah, we got a couple.
You know what's funny is moving to the warehouse. Somebody made a mention. I think it was Alan Rubin, of course. If anybody didn't have cigars for 20 years, it just means they didn't sell for a reason. Not always true. That is something that has to do with scale. Because I could tell you, 15 years ago, I could tell you everything we had at any given moment. But as you scale up, and you start moving, and you start shuffling, and you outgrow, and you tuck things away. Man, there is stuff that we're finding in the warehouse. As we're moving stuff to the warehouse. I mean, it's nothing you could do. Anything. Oh, we got 30 bundles of this, 20. But if you're not a member of our Smoke In Social Facebook page, I'm going to tell you all right now. Now's the time to join, because we're going to be doing such stupid, crazy drops, making room and clearing out stuff that there's really no point to do all this work for 20 bundles of this or 10 boxes of this that we found. We're just going to drop it on the social page, hot and heavy, get them out the door. Guys are going to find some cool stuff, great deals, get out the door. And we're just going to do it to our private Smoking Social Facebook group. So if you're not in it, I'm telling you, not just a great community, man, there's so much socialite love, I call it, in that group. I'm dumbfounded every week by somebody. One of our dear members and one of our guys that really supports us, Quentin, his son had a reading project and they just slammed it, and I think they shattered a record, the kid's leading his whole school and raising money for reading. So really a phenomenal group. Yeah, you do kind of sound like that, Alan. No, that's actually my Lou Rothman voice.
Actually, that's a pretty good Lou Rothman voice.
So look, this show's getting away from us. We cannot end the show and not have this show and not talk about your PCA presence this year. You were a point of discussion, whether you chose to or not. Whether it was by design or by accident, you were a hot topic of this year's PCA trade show. And there were rumors going around. Your warehouse got confiscated. All your stuff was gone. Just to read a quote here by, let's see, who was it? It was Charlie from Half Wheel. Yeah, so Charlie from Half Wheel says, the entire booth setup is made up of 2 folding tables, 1 pop-up display banner, and a handful of metal folding chairs. Oh, and a little bit of trash. Caldwell's booth won the worst exhibit award, handed out by the Sands Expo Convention Center cleaning staff, who had been convinced that the trash in the booth space was intentional and not something that needed to be picked up. You left the show early and posted on social media thanking the 73 retailers who came to the show. So there was definitely caused a lot of discussion points, your presence at this year's trade show. What's the real story behind it, Robert?
That's such a loaded question, man, but I like it. I mean, one of many things. Like, first of all, so we normally have like 20 booths, right? And we have this huge fucking booth that we bring in and we build out this whole thing. And it's just like you waste a bunch of facets. You waste a ton of money as a brand going to the show. Like you put together this whole thing and you store it and all this shit. So we stopped paying rent on our storage of the booth and we let whomever take it. Actually, they charged us.
So it was a true story. I wasn't even sure if that was a true story. You did lose.
No. It's not a true story. It's not a true story. We deliberately threw away the booth last year. Like, we just said, "Fuck you, we're not paying for it. Throw it away." So it's not like they confiscated. Like we in 2020, like at the beginning.
I was hoping to see some Caldwell paraphernalia on Storage Wars.
Well, I was just going to say that.
Well, whoever bought that storage unit was upset. Like, you get all these old milk crates, right? So I mean, first of all, this trade show makes zero economic sense in terms of like spend. I don't think there's necessity to spend the type of money that you spend to generate the business that you generate. And then at the end of the day, your margins just collapse by attending the show and putting on this hurrah. And I like to correlate it to, like, if you go to American Airlines and you open up like the fucking magazine, there's like 5 or 6 manufacturers in that magazine. You think they sell cigars, or you think they do it for each other? They do it for each other. I mean, there's no fucking benefit to paying us $25,000. But all manufacturers live in Miami. We all fly American. We all look at the stupid magazine and it's like, oh, here's 5 guys that like made it. Like it's the stupidest fucking waste of money. Like nobody goes and buys cigars because that magazine. And I feel like the trade show, it's a lot of that. Like this, shiny shit, smoke and mirrors competition.
Look at me.
And it's bullshit. Yeah, look at me, look at me. So it's like, okay. So we kind of figured that out in the 2019 show. We said, okay, these are a major distributor catalog, all these sales. These are like our buddy retailers. These are like our regulars. So what were then our add-on sales that occurred from being at the show? And we realized that number was a small fraction of what our gross sales were. So what are we putting on this show for? So we decided in 2019 that we would no longer attend in a big way in terms of space. So we decided to scale back. And then, so we attended to see people. So like, Abe, you and I sat down, we ate licorice. I gave you some of that delicious bread I found in California, the lavash, baby. But I mean, we go, I don't give a fuck. Like, let's just go hang out. And then you generate the sales that you generate, and it's a great time. But like, that was our most profitable show we've ever had. And it wasn't our top selling show. So a lot of manufacturers every year, it's like, this was the best show I ever had. Bullshit. I don't fucking see it. I mean, listen, if you're a brand that was selling 50 or 100,000 last year, and this year you're selling $250,000, yeah, it was. So if you're a brand that's in that like parabolic growth stage, which there's a lot of them now, thanks to cigar clubs, online retail, there's a lot of these guys that are exploding. So yeah, the parabolic growth, or if you restructured your company, fine. But a lot of other guys, it's like bullshit, man. Like there weren't enough people there. And then, so that's the other thing is too, like I that organization, I don't know, like I'll go, but I mean, like I have a hard time saying, what do they do for a manufacturer? Because I feel like there's an imbalance of opportunity there.
Did you reserve a booth for next year?
No. I mean, so if so my thing is one of two. I'm like, maybe they'll kick us out. So that was an artistic interpretation. Like that was art. And that's why I wouldn't let them clean up the booth. They're like, what is this? I'm like, it's my fucking booth, And I mean, it's everything that we wanted. And we left early. I don't give a fuck. Like we literally went to have burritos. Like that's what we did. Great burrito spot off the strip. So anyways, and then, I mean, like, what do I need to do to like that? I've never, I don't know, Abe, I've had a really cool booth many times. I've had very creative booths. I've never gotten any play on any of my booths. I've attended the show 7 years. Somehow magically, like for 5 years, I've never been on the floor plan or never in the registry. Every year, guys are like, hey, are you here? Because we can't, like, I'm like, what is this bullshit? So fuck it.
Oh, they talked about you this year.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm like, maybe they'll block me next year. If they do, I don't give a fuck, right? And then if they don't block me from going, like, I'll attend anyways because I'm happy to go see the retailers because they're like, fuck it. Like, let's go and let's smoke cigars and let's do what we do. But, I mean, the trade shows, like, I mean, on life support, maybe, like, they have a GoFundMe page.
Wow.
They have a fucking GoFundMe page.
They do not.
I swear to God.
They do not.
They have a fucking GoFundMe. Like, they have a GoFundMe page.
I'm looking.
Paul's looking. So I take it your plans at this point is not to attend next year.
If it's there, I'll go. Because to me, it's not political.
But don't you have to have your booth reserved already?
No, because you can grab it last minute. That's what we did this year.
Okay.
We have it confirmed. And I mean, they have a GoFundMe page.
They have a fucking GoFundMe page.
Really?
Like the scammer in Opelika that's running a fucking, goddamn charity fraud has one too. They got a fucking GoFundMe page, man. So I mean, come on. And then every year.
What are they saying on the GoFundMe page?
Help us, please.
I just confirmed it with 2 of our news sources. I'm looking for it now.
Man.
And so, Abe, you tell me.
How can you even justify that with people who have real problems and real needs? That's insane.
Isn't it fucking crazy? I mean, it's bullshit. And so, you
can't have a property that you own somewhere in Washington, D.C. and have a GoFundMe page. Then you just sell your property.
Yeah. I mean, they're just like it's.
Oh, yeah. Alex got it.
I mean, get the fuck out of here, Abe. That's bullshit. GoFundMe charity.
I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. That's a little disappointing.
Charity. It's insane, but that's the level of desperation that I think that the world's gotten to with this organization. And at the end of the day, like, fuck it, man. We're doing just fine. I'm sure you're doing just fine, Abe. Like, everybody's doing just fine. And if 2020 proved us something, it's that you don't need these goddamn shows. And so the shows are beneficial for what? Like Germany. I like going to that show, man. That show's business. I eat fucking pretzels. I eat sausages. They got the fucking one that's got the curry on it. And, you know, I sit down with distributors and retailers and other manufacturers from all over the world, and we smoke a cigar. And at this year's trade show, like, it was hard to find an order form in my booth. I don't fucking care, because I'm going to come into the show. I'm going to sell you with like this big discount. I'm going to sink all this cost into my booth. I'm going to lose 10% of my show on cost. I'm going to lose 15, 20% on discount. I'm going to lose 3% on cost of attending.
Listen,
so now I'm down all these points.
I'm not going to lie.
What?
When Robert took my trade show order, if I had to bet a signed bill that order was going to get fucked up, I would have bet it. Because it was like, I mean, seriously, it was like, all right, let's grab some. We need to borrow a chair from here. We sat down. I'm like, are you going to write this stuff? Yeah, I just write it down. And then it came perfect. So I got to commend. Like, I'm in utter shock, because if I had to bet good money that order was going to come up screwed up in some form or fashion, I would have bet solid money that it did, and it came straight. Mind-boggling.
The GoFundMe page is really hitting me. I'm reading it, and that's something that Scott Pierce didn't mention in his interview.
I'm shocked. I ain't gonna lie. It's a little bit shocking.
I'm dumbfounded that they raised $30,000.
There's no way if I was on a board that I could ever vote. Yeah, let's do this.
Especially knowing the kind of money that the organization has and or brings it. Like, anyway,
it's fucking pathetic. Like, it's just weird, man. And so here's the thing. Like, back to the charity thing. You got money to give it to somewhere that fucking matters.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the way you explained it before, Robert, was really very well put and very well said, and what you do. And obviously we've had you on the show a lot and you've talked about it, but you know, a lot of people talk about you in that positive note too, because of how much you do for charity and how it actually impacts people, rather than, you know, throwing money at organizations that may not necessarily use it or whatnot.
I think GoFundMe conceptually is a great thing. I just think it just totally gets abused, and I don't know. That to me is
my favorite is when you see somebody's trying to raise 100,000 and they get like 6 mil. Like, have you seen those campaigns?
Right.
Oh yeah, crazy. I have.
Right.
Well, I'm sure just like everything else in life, there are guys who found a way to scam it and creatively work it. And just like anything else, unfortunately, there will always be people who will take advantage of it. Let's get Coop on, man. We are running super long today. Just goes to show you there's always good stuff to talk about with Robert Caldwell. But let's see what's going on with Coop and see what he feels about this GoFundMe page. I'm curious.
Hey, yo, what's my theme music? The Scoop with Coop. Breaking industry news. Hear it first on KMA Talk Radio and cigar-coop.com.
Coop, before we go any further, I just really want to thank you for taking your time out of your weekend, driving 10 hours to be part of our 10-year episode last weekend. It was great to see you, and I'm very, very honored and happy you showed up.
And we saw him as soon as he got in, and he was working.
Yep.
He was sitting with his laptop working.
He was.
After a 10-hour drive.
Yeah, no, it was an honor to be down there. I haven't been traveling much with COVID. I did want to make this happen, so I was very appreciative for everyone there and to see you guys as well. I kind of went back on lockdown a bit now again, just to play it safe. But like I said, it was very special. I wanted to be a part of that because
thank you.
I remember listening to the first show in my backyard 10 years ago. So
wow.
Are you in the bathroom?
No, I'm not in the bathroom, Robert.
That'd be a big window to have in the bathroom.
Yeah,
Robert.
exactly.
In a parlor.
I thought it looks like what you're leaning on your right arm.
Coop.
It looked like a porcelain sink.
Coop, you're the straight and narrow. You are the straight man.
Right.
You are the
Right.
straight man of the cigar industry. The traditionalist. I'm really curious on your opinion because I'm shocked because I just found this out from Robert. Never even heard this. How do you feel about a GoFundMe page for the PCA?
Well, I'm kind of in the boat what Robert said. I think GoFundMe has a particular usage model, and I think there's certain things that it's used to help people in need. So I really feel that that's what it was intended to be. Now I know the PCA has to raise funds, and they don't have a fundraiser right now, and I think they're struggling with that. So they need ways to raise funds. I just don't know if this was the way to do it, to be honest with you, because again, I kind of feel like Robert says, this serves a purpose. I'll just make one comment though. No one complained about when Steve Saka used it with his woodchuck thing. So I just want to keep that in mind. That's remember that Steve Saka had to GoFundMe to free the woodchuck, if you remember. So
I mean, was that more out of humor than?
well, he did, and he did donate that to a charitable function. But I just want to keep that in mind too.
I
you
think
say Saka was having fun, but yeah,
I think
He
that was
wanted the woodchuck to live, man.
yeah.
But if he gave the money to a charitable organization,
He
that
did.
counts.
He
I think
did. He gave it to the
PCA is
SPCA.
paying
Yeah,
with this money.
he did. Yeah, he did. I think, but they do need to raise funds. The PCA, there's no question about it. And I'm not. They don't have a fundraiser. That's the problem. They don't have some. They need a professional fundraiser in there.
So let me ask you a question, Coop. If I have a bad year in business, and instead of figuring out how to repivot, salvage, grow it, do something else, I go make a GoFundMe page, help save Smoke In. How is that interpreted?
Well,
Does
I
GoFundMe
agree.
become the cop out for bad
It
business?
does. No,
bad
it
decision
shouldn't.
making?
It shouldn't. But keep in mind, PCA is not for profit, and Smoke In is for profit.
All right. Good
that
point.
that would be the only thing I would say with that. Yeah.
That's why you're my straight man.
Right.
Good point.
Yep. I hope you would not use a GoFundMe page. I don't think
Never.
I know you wouldn't. Yeah.
Never.
Yep.
I'd take a third job before I would start a GoFundMe page.
Right.
I'm just from that old school mentality. I mean, listen, I can't say bad things about it because I know people whose houses are burned and stuff, and it's great. I'm just me personally, my personal decision. I could never publicly go out there, man. I would literally like rob banks.
By the way, if you guys ever want to give money to somebody on GoFundMe, give it to them directly because GoFundMe charges a commission for every dollar paid in.
Sure, they do.
It's a for-profit entity.
Yep.
I think Facebook, if you do it through Facebook, they don't take a commission because Facebook has now, where you could raise money for causes through Facebook. I think they don't, but everybody takes their slice. That's what you got to avoid. So, anyways, Coop, what's the scoop this week?
It's a light week in news, so it kind of works this week. But let me just mention there's two releases that have hit the market. The first one is from Gurkha Cigars. It's the Revenant line. It's a two-blend line. One's a Corojo. The other is a Maduro, San Andres Maduro. And what's kind of cool about these releases is that they're the first from this Gurkha to come from Tabacalera El Artista in the Dominican Republic. That's kind of an up and rising factory. They're doing the cigar for David Ortiz right now.
They've been around. They've been around for a while, doing a lot of private.
Yes, a lot of private stuff as well.
Private blends, and then they had the David Ortiz cigar, the Big Pappy. But I'm going to tell you something. I had the pleasure of meeting them this year at the trade show. Good people.
Very good people.
It's actually a line that we've bought in that will be featured in our new warehouse. Their Buffalo 10, which is like a $5 cigar. This will all be available online. Look, all that stack of papers I showed earlier in the show, it's not magic. Somebody's got to take product shots, got to be entered. The goat's doing a lot of the entering. But the Buffalo 10, which is a $5 box press, is selling like wildfire, like literally a California wildfire in our retail stores.
Yeah.
And they actually made the new Sindicato.
I was going to say, yep.
Which I saw looked beautiful smoked. I think they're going to be an up and coming little company. I mean, as far as having their own brands, I think they're going to be getting out there.
Totally agree. In fact, that Buffalo 10 Connecticut, Ben Lee was on our team, and I smoked it. We think it was one of the best value cigars, and actually was one of the better cigars at the show. We were really impressed with, again, a $5 cigar. You know, and there are you can get very good cigars for that price, and that was one of them.
That was one of them for $5 stick. I was actually shocked. And if anybody is interested, you can call the shop before we can get up online. But they're selling like hotcakes. But it was one of my operations guy. I literally walked over there and he's like, the importer of their line happens to be a good friend of mine. They're guys. In fact, the brother is the guy who sings the opening theme song for our show. Have my big cigar and performed live at the Great Smoke earlier this year. They actually import their cigars, and they asked me as a favor. They wanted to meet me, walk me over there, and I just went over there to meet them. And my operations guy, like, what are you doing here? You know, and whatever. And I saw the Buffalo 10 packaging. He gave me a cigar to smoke. I'm like, this cigar will be a grand slam at the register for $5 a stick or whatever. And we bought it in, and it's selling like wildfire. So good. Interesting you bought them up. But yeah, El Artista.
Yep. And Ram Rodriguez is the owner. Good guy. I've had him on the show a couple times. Recommend. He's a great guest for KMA.
You were just taking the words out of my head as you were saying it.
Yeah, he would be really good.
What else you got going on?
The other thing that's hit is Partagas from the Partagas out of the U.S. Ford Cigar Company's Partagas, which used to be General Cigar Company's Partagas. They had a new cigar that's starting to arrive at retailers. It's called the Cortado. And what's significant about that, it's the first Connecticut shade Partagas, and it's the first Partagas also to be made in Nicaragua. It's going to be in 4 sizes, and it's kind of interesting. The sizes is a Corona, a Robusto, a Toro, and then there's an 8x54 Presidente size that's in this. So that has already arrived at the stores as we speak.
That's the new red box.
That's the red box, yeah. I have not smoked it yet.
Neither have I, but we got those in.
Yeah, I'm curious to smoke that Presidente size and see how it smokes.
What else? Anything else going on, Coop?
That's it. It was a very light week this week.
All right. Well, not to interrupt and ruin Alex's haircut appointment, let's jump. usually got a Saturday appointment right after the show. Let's jump right into season 2 of Tale of the Tape.
All right, coming down to the bottom, here we are at number 2 of our top 10 pro wrestlers of all time. Coming in at number 2 for me is none other than Hulk Hogan. I hate Hulk Hogan. He's an awful wrestler. I think he had an awful gimmick. He was like the American hero, but like his colors were yellow and red. Like nothing makes sense about Hulk Hogan. Terrible dresser, terrible weird finishing move, a leg drop. But if you were an 8-year-old kid at the peak of Hulk Hogan, there was nothing bigger than Hulk Hogan, and he's still probably the biggest star that wrestling has ever seen. So Hulk Hogan, unfortunately. Go ahead, Coop.
All right. You mentioned this person last week, but he's at my number 2, Bruno Sammartino. The living legend, or was the living legend. This guy had the longest reign as the WWF at the time champion. He had 2 reigns of it. I actually think I was almost making a case for him at number 1, but kind of towards the end of his career, he had some injuries, and they kind of extended his career a bit with the whole Larry Zbyszko feud, which, sold out Shea Stadium. He sold out Madison Square Garden many, many times. There weren't pay-per-views back then.
Right.
The events were Madison Square Garden, and Bruno just headlined it and sold it out. And the guy could wrestle. He could actually wrestle. Hulk Hogan couldn't wrestle.
No, not a bit.
No.
There it is.
A digitized screen this week, or did we miss it?
We do. I don't know. Paul's doing things.
There he goes. Probably waited last minute. He didn't upload it.
No, I had it. I uploaded. I had it uploaded to make sure it's not missed.
And he's on mute. He doesn't even know it. Paul.
He does.
He's so on point.
He doesn't know.
He always uploads it. I'll give him the credit.
Put it up one more time, Paul. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I would have called farce. I could see Coop not putting Hulk Hogan on there, but I would have called farce if one of you didn't pick Hulk Hogan, because all your points were made legitimate, man. But he was wrestling at one point.
I agree.
He was
Again,
everything that professional wrestling was. The first battle royales. I mean, it was the Hulk, man.
Yes, but again, like I said, if you're an 8-year-old kid at the time, but
Bruno
all
kicked
things
ass.
considered, Hogan's
Bruno
awful.
beat him Bruno beat him actually because Bruno did fight him. Bruno beat him several times.
Awful stiff wrestler.
But
Just awful.
He was. I remember
grudgingly my number
every
2.
Hulk Hogan match was the same.
Yeah.
You know, it was that stupid thing where he'd be down and then he'd kind of like rise up like a Hulk. It was cartoonish. It was cartoonish.
Okay, I got news for you guys. Pro wrestling is cartoonish.
Yeah, but he's like
we're talking about this like it's a
you watch Bruno though. You watch guys like Bruno Sammartino. They weren't cartoonish. They really wrestled, and there was kind of like they incorporated.
I wonder if Hulk Hogan has a GoFundMe.
He made a ton of money off that lawsuit, didn't he?
I said, but he probably did before that.
Yeah. Before that, he was struggling. I think he was doing the reality show for a while.
No, he sued like I don't know BuzzFeed or one of them.
Gawker.
Yep. Had to go out of business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daniel Lemus, your list is garbage. Wow.
Where is? I guess so. You're talking about the showmanship, the crazy over the top antics. So I guess I can't expect Mick Foley on either one of your lists.
So I'm calling me and Coop have the same number 1. If not,
I think we do too.
Oh, this will be interesting.
Yeah, I think we do too. After the list how it went, I think it will be.
Robert, you pro wrestler guy growing up at all? Yeah.
No, because it was like fake. That shit's weird to me. That, like,
but you didn't know that when you were 8.
Hold on. It became way more entertaining when they just acknowledged it was fake. It was the years of they were trying to pull it off that was real. That was kind of like, and that was my era. You know, everybody remember John Stossel getting whacked on
Dr. D.
2020. I mean, he got whacked for calling it
He
fake.
So we got number 1 next week, and then I'm super jacked for next season.
Yeah,
we haven't announced that yet.
No,
right?
we have not.
Okay, we'll save that next.
Maybe
week.
I'll see if we can get a teaser ready after number 1 next week.
All right, we're going long, so we're going to skip the insane asylum this week, being that I didn't have one ready. But Poop, no, that's on me. I've taken that.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Paul's life is too hectic for menial chores. Leave him alone.
I want to take the camera in the other room and show you what's going on, but I won't. But
yes.
Did you cry when you got your new house?
The new house we're not in yet. We're in.
Are you gonna cry?
Oh, am I gonna cry? I'll cry when we leave it.
Are you gonna cry on your return to Disney today?
No.
You know, after the months away.
I don't want to. Just to preface this, when Robert made a joke that New Yorkers go to Disney on holiday weekends, you're right. My family that's from New York was planning on going, and we're meeting them there. We would never go on a holiday weekend. We normally don't. We go during the week.
Well, yeah, hot as balls, like no parking. I imagine it's a little better with like toned down from COVID, maybe.
They just jacked it back up a week or so ago. Apparently, got to wear masks everywhere again, so it should be interesting.
Mickey's expecting you.
Yeah.
Well, William, thank you for joining us. As always, one of our best and favorite contributors. Check out more at cigar-coop.com. Robert, thank you for spending Saturday morning with us and hopefully entertaining some of our friends. Pepper cream soda to the nub.
Abe, next time, if it's in person, we're gonna go to Food Shack or Leftovers in Jupiter.
I'll meet you. Of course you do, Paul. I'll meet you up there.
I was very upset when I realized that it was it was convenient for me not to leave my house today, but I was looking forward to driving up, doing that, and then I was gonna go eat.
He was texting me like, let's go to Jupiter after the show. I said, why are we gonna go to Jupiter? Because I thought you were just going to be in the area. It's like, that's like a 40-minute drive from here. But
yeah, but it's fucking worth it. I mean, that's the 2 restaurants in the world. Those 2 in Greek Isles Taverna in North Fort Lauderdale. I'll drive an hour and a half.
Greek Isles is good.
Greek Isles is fucking good. All right. Who do we next week? I think we got the guys from Terrazona. I'm going to confirm that. But I think we got the guys from Terrazona Cigars. We've been a little inundated and slacking in our KMA duties. But once again, thank you to everyone out there who joined us this week. We hope we started your Saturday morning, educated you, give you a few laughs. And until next week, everybody, keep it lit.